Imagine grinding your favorite RPG, only to get straight up isekai'd right into the middle of it. Bro wakes up, but not as the overpowered hero he is, just some random background NPC. One look in the mirror has him bawling his eyes out. Why? Because staring back at him is the cursed reflection of Evan D. Sheridan, the most pathetic, hopelessly doomed side character in gaming history. For years, our guy tried absolutely everything to keep Evan alive on his monitor, but the universe straight up refused. This dude caught every single death screen imaginable. We are talking squashed flat by dungeon bosses chugging lethal poison, or literally tripping over his own 2 feet and snapping his neck. One Tuesday, a furious mage shanked him over a bad breakup. The next, a whole squad of 10 ex-girlfriends hunted him down for ghosting them. And the absolute kicker, he even caught the fade, taking a fatal hit for the actual main character during the final boss raid. That heroic sacrifice was his longest speedrun yet, giving our boy a tiny shred of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he can actually cheat death this time around. But how do you dodge fate when the whole universe wants you packed up? That sparks his ultimate master plan, to rewrite the script and become the one background character who actually survives to see the end credits. While elite knights sweat, blood-swinging swords and mages fry their brains memorizing spells, Evan realizes the cheat code is painfully simple. Just level up. Pushing those stats higher means mages can spam nuke-level magic, while frontline warriors turn into unstoppable, lightning-fast tanks. Overhearing his plotting, his personal maid, Mabel, freaks out instantly, assuming our boy is already planning to dive headfirst into a dungeon. She starts yelling at him, dead serious about how he needs to stop treating his life like a massive joke, considering dungeons are merciless slaughterhouses crawling with nightmare fuel. Sure, being a highborn noble means he is fated to conquer one eventually, but only after hitting adulthood. Until that day drops, she demands he grind through proper royal training to build some actual muscle. Mabel flat out refuses to let him wander into a death trap on her watch. Knowing better than to argue, he nods along to cool her jets. As she finally storms out of the room, he smirks. He totally bait and switched her, dropping that comment loudly on purpose, just to test her loyalty. Here is the massive plot twist. Our reincarnated gamer has been stuck surviving in this fantasy reality for 9 whole years now, and he knows every single NPC walking around is severely brainwashed by a massive lie. They genuinely believe dungeon raiding is the absolute only way to score experience points. I mean, they are not entirely wrong. Wiping out dungeon floors does shower adventurers with divine blessings that massively boost their stats. The hype got so intense that the Royal Crown locked the whole system down, forcing high-ranking nobles to manage the raids and building a massive fortress city around it. And pulling the strings of that massive hub is none other than his own dad, the legendary Marquis Soline D. Sheridan. Raiding absolutely spikes your level, but Evan holds the ultimate walkthrough. He knows hidden exploits to farm stats safely, relying entirely on busted mechanics he abused back in his gaming days. Catching a snippet of his muttering, Mabel turns around and asks what he is plotting. Flashing a soft, reassuring smile, he tells her to chill. Internally, he knows society views him as useless filler in the upcoming demon war. Yet, his character design is easily top tier. Still, he mentally swears off smiling from this day forward, fully aware of the brutal timeline approaching. In this chaotic universe, even a charming smirk can trigger a catastrophic butterfly effect. He refuses to casually smile at the wrong girl and trigger a fatal death flag. Shaking off the dread, he locks in on the mission. Now that Evan has double-checked the local lore regarding demonic threats, he zeroes in on his ultimate survival blueprint. Step 1 of his immortality project is securing infinite levels. Spinning back to Mabel, he casually asks when his birthday drops. When she replies, it is next week, he orders her to book a private audience with his father. He demands a sit-down before the celebration kicks off, practically buzzing with adrenaline to activate his masterstroke. He is hunting a highly classified family heirloom, hoarded by the Marquis. The Mirasol necklace, the very first mythical artifact dragged out of the Sheridan dungeon depths, and passed straight down the royal bloodline. Back in the original playthrough, players could only snatch this insanely broken loot by forging a contract with Evan. And the real catch, unlocking its hidden power, requires triggering a very specific disastrous cutscene that is permanently burned into his memory. In the original lore, when our boy flooded the cursed jewelry with raw mana and chanted the activation spell, reality literally broke. Out of absolute nowhere, a tsunami of thousands of squishy slimes flooded the map. Sure, they were just pathetic level 1 trash mobs, but the spawning glitch was completely unstoppable. He desperately hacked and slashed through the endless tidal wave of gelatinous goo, but ultimately, getting swallowed alive and suffocating under a mountain of slimes became his most viral meme-worthy death screen ever. But during that exact massacre, his gamer brain caught a massive glitch. While controlling the main protagonist to slice down one of those blobs to save Evan, a beautiful glowing system notification popped up on the HUD+1 experience point acquired. That is when the $1 million realization hit him. Those infinitely spawning necklace slimes were actually a bottomless farming spot. This was completely detached from the usual buffs you snag from grinding dungeon bosses. Farming raw experience directly upgrades your fundamental stats. The unwritten law of this RPG reality is that every single microscopic action drops a reward. Gamers straight up call it grinding experience. Whether you are slaughtering goblins or doing thousands of push-ups, spamming the same repetitive loop forcefully levels you up. The clueless NPCs native to this dimension just think of it as building muscle memory or mastering a basic life skill. But the absolute truth, they are totally blind to the invisible system, fundamentally hacking their bodies. Here is the raw truth. It is not just about grinding skill stats. They are literally evolving their core existence. Back when Evan D. Sheridan was glued to his screen as a hardcore player, he caught onto a massive hidden mechanic. While his standard dungeon stats spiked, his actual existence level was quietly ticking upward in the background. Our guy knew this wasn't some glitch, it was totally viable. But just like regular grinding existence levels do not just skyrocket overnight, it is an agonizingly slow burn, heavily bottlenecked by a person's raw innate talent. But here is the ultimate cheat code. Existence levels. They have absolutely zero level cap. That completely shatters the limits of normal dungeon progression. Suddenly, Maybell pops into the room, snapping him right out of his deep dive. She drops the news that his dad is waiting, and the head maid is ready to escort him. Thanks to his absolute sweatlord dedication in his past life, our MC has hoarded a mountain of invaluable game knowledge. Even rocking the bottom-tier laborer title, the existence levels he farmed meant even a total weakling could bulk up their stats. But let's be real, if he dragged his current fragile body into an actual dungeon, total disaster. We are talking instant game over, getting sliced clean in half. Usually a laborer class has to hunt to farm that sweet XP, but his current toddler-sized body is not surviving the wilds. That sparks an idea. What if he could find mobs so pathetically weak a literal kid could body them? A light bulb goes off, summon trash-tier slimes and farm them in his room. Enter the MVP item, Mirasol's necklace. This beauty burns exactly 1 mana point to spawn a level 1 slime. Factoring in game logic, a rookie character drops in with roughly 100 hit points and 100 mana. Do the math, and Evan has enough juice to spawn 100 of these squishy blobs. Sure, the XP drop rate from a slime is microscopic, basically zero, but starting the grind at this age, it will definitely snowball. Cut to the Marquis's grand office. After getting the green light, he struts in. As the second son, our guy totally understands the assignment, and he is ready to play his role flawlessly to finesse that necklace. He casually drops a hint to his dad, asking if he could snag his birthday present, a little ahead of schedule. The Marquis raises an eyebrow, wondering what the rush is about. Evan immediately pivots, claiming he spotted a specific necklace, and is absolutely obsessed with it. The Marquis is stunned. A young boy begging for jewelry instead of a badass sword or a cool pet. Make it make sense. But when Evan name-drops Mirasol's necklace, the old man visibly chokes up. He drops the lore. This is not just bling, it is a sacred family heirloom. Definitely not something you casually toss to a kid. But our MC is not backing down. He deploys his ultimate undefeatable weapon, the puppy dog pout. Critical hit, the Marquis caves instantly. He is torn on one side, his adorable kid is begging. On the flip side, even though this relic does not pack any insane meta-breaking stats, it carries heavy historical weight. But then, a classic fantasy trope hits him. Artifacts have a mind of their own, choosing their masters. He figures the necklace must have called out to Evan. Defeated by destiny, he nods and hands over the treasure early. Evan absolutely launches himself at his dad for a massive hug. Before letting him go, the Marquis drops a crucial warning. There is a hard cap on an individual's equipment slots. He explains the vast world of magical gear, from enchanted rings to legendary blades and amulets. But no matter your build, your body maxes out at exactly 5 equipped items. Any more and the sheer magical pressure would crush your physical limits. He makes Evan promise that once he levels up in life and loots higher tier gear, he will stash Mirasol's necklace back in the family vault, where it belongs, preserving their bloodline's legacy. Little does he know, our guy only plans to return it once he milks it. For every ounce of XP, he knows this slime farming strat will eventually hit a massive wall. Evan flashes an innocent smile, swearing to give it back later. But inside, his brain is already racing, trying to figure out how to actually track his progress. Without a standard RPG status window popping up, monitoring his exact existence level, and total XP is going to be a headache. Still, securing the necklace was step 1, and he is hyped to finally hold it. The second he locks his bedroom door, he inspects the loot. Suddenly, a dark, traumatic flashback hits him like a truck, the gruesome memory of his character getting absolutely devoured alive by a slime mob. He takes a breath, reminding himself of the original Evan's fatal mistake, spamming the artifact's activation before fully dominating its mana core. That rookie error triggered a deadly rampage, but our boy is not that clueless anymore. He has the wiki memorized. He knows exactly how to break an artifact's resistance, safely spawn the mobs, and dodge the death flags. He even remembers the exact incantation, the very same spell that previously led to his brutal game over. But this run, he is scripting a totally different ending. Channeling his energy, he feels the necklace sync up with his pulse, letting a pure stream of mana surge straight into his palm. With a wet pop, a slime manifests right in his hand. But do not let the cute squishy look fool you, it lunges immediately. Dodging, our guy quickly analyzes that these level 1 pests only chip away with pathetic low-tier poison damage. The only way these things could actually pack a punch is if they swarmed him in a massive wave. Hyping himself up, he remembers he is a totally different beast now. His fingers close around the slimy creature, crushing it with zero hesitation. His gamer brain kicks in, recalling a hidden mechanic where taking continuous tick damage forces a target into a highly vulnerable status effect, dubbed the critical condition. Once an enemy's HP bar flashes red in that state, it unlocks a devastating exclusive execution move, an absolute game ender that wipes out the target in a single brutal strike. The hardcore player base famously named it the final one-hit mechanic, and this slime is about to experience it firsthand. Wham! One final strike obliterates the target. After running this combat loop a few times, our guy clocks his kill speed at roughly 10 seconds per slime. Sure, if he were sitting pretty at level 20, he could completely wipe these mobs from existence with a single flick of his wrist. But hey, the grind starts at 0. Every squashed slime means stacked EXP. Recognizing that this tedious farm is his only ticket to leveling up, he locks it in as his everyday routine. But this strategy seriously nukes both his mana and his physical energy, if he just blindly spams his attacks. His current vessel, a fragile level 1, 9-year-old kid, is going to totally crash. Luckily, his veteran gamer knowledge kicks in. He remembers the debuff mechanics. Pushing past the limit triggers nasty status ailments. Drop your energy pool under 50%, and boom, massive chills hit. Let it tank below 30% and you are dripping in freezing cold sweats. Doing the mental math, our boy calculates, he can safely keep grinding as long as he rides just above that 30% danger zone. So he micromanages his stats like an absolute pro and keeps pushing. Hours melt away, and suddenly he is wiping out these mobs way faster. Did he just secure a sneaky level up? Doubtful. Grinding early levels is rarely a cakewalk. Plus, without a floating holographic UI to track his progress, he is practically flying blind. It hits him, maybe spamming the exact same motion triggered a hidden requirement. And miraculously, he unlocks a brand new ability out of nowhere. He theorizes it stems from the insane amount of times he flexed his fists, crushing the targets. A grip-based skill sounds a bit too basic, but he will absolutely take the free buff. Interestingly, burning mana feels like a literal vice gripping his heart, yet his physical energy refuses to drain at the same pace. Something does not add up. Chain summoning should be wrecking his tiny body. He ponders, if Evan, the original side piece of this crazy storyline, was secretly blessed with a massive health pool instead of magic points. That would explain his insane endurance. But wait, a massive plot hole smacks him in the face. Evan was strictly a spellcaster in the original lore. The math is definitely not mathing. Cut to the hallway where his devoted maid Mabel catches some weird noises and bursts through the door. He instantly waves her off, claiming everything is perfectly chill, and ordering her away for the next few hours. Once the coast is clear, he throws serious shade at the trash-tier game developers. But hitting the game over screen is not on his agenda. He drafts up a hyper-optimized daily grind to completely overhaul his scrawny physique, merging his magic mob farming with legit real-world fitness routines should absolutely break his growth limits. On top of that, he starts crafting a massive lore bible. We are not talking about some quick cheat sheet either. This masterwork will document the actual creation myths, royal bloodline histories, sweaty political drama, pinpoint coordinates for insane loot, and the deep dark secrets of every major player roaming this map. Having practically lived in this game during his past life, all the wiki data is permanently burned into his brain. He fully intends to weaponize this meta-knowledge to dodge death flags and stay 10 steps ahead of the plot. Still, living the game is way different than playing it. The butterfly effect is real, so he desperately needs to track any deviation from the original timeline. Monitoring these changes is his only defense mechanism. His paranoia hits an all-time high, because a lethal threat could literally be lurking down the hall, forcing him to play this stealth mode flawlessly. Every single move he makes is strictly for survival. The ultimate workout regimen is finally locked and loaded, entirely designed to forge an unbreakable body. It merges insane gamer strats with the massive encyclopedia he is continuously writing. Blueprint secured. Evan immediately dives into the heavy lifting. Downstairs, Mabel corners the rest of the staff, aggressively pointing out that their young boss is acting super sus. She frantically mentions his recent habit of barricading himself in his bedroom and declaring a strict no-entry policy. Another maid clocks Mabel totally spiraling and tells her to check her attitude. A servant boy chimes in, dropping a reality check that acting friendly with the VIP is cool and all, but they are still strictly employees. Blurring that line is just asking for a one-way ticket to the chopping block. Still, a different maid backs Mabel up, admitting the vibes are totally off lately. The chaotic little terror who used to terrorize them with daily pranks has gone complete ghost mode. The mansion has been suspiciously peaceful ever since. The servant boy casually drops that he spotted the kid pulling some bizarre moves out in the yard. He was locked into this wild stance, almost like he was grinding a secret workout. That jogs the other maid memory, making her realize she constantly catches him aggressively, flexing his wrists. The boy just shrugs the whole thing off. He writes it off as weird kid behavior that adults will never decode. But Mabel is not buying it. She remains absolutely convinced that his nasty fever completely rewired Evan. The maid tries to talk her off the ledge while the boy delivers a final warning about her dangerous obsession. Sticking around, this job was going to be an absolute nightmare for her. Suddenly, another staff member absolutely crashes into the dining hall, gasping for air like he just ran a marathon. He drops a total bombshell. Their tiny young master was out in the courtyard casually deadlifting a literal boulder. The other kid brushes it off, claiming the guy is just seeing things. But the breathless servant stands his ground. Sure, it was not the size of a mountain, but there was zero chance a little kid should pack that kind of raw physical strength. And the craziest part, when he confronted Evan, our boy did not even flinch, chillingly dropping that he was using a massive rock as a makeshift dumbbell. The poor NPC servant could not even process the word dumbbell. Catching wind of this absolute madness, Mabel totally panics and tries to sprint off to check on her young master. But the head maid instantly yanks her back, locking her in place. Meanwhile, the skeptical kid grills the messenger again, basically begging him to admit he was hallucinating. Nope. The servant swears on his life it was 100% real. Mabel is practically wrestling to break free and escape the room, but that maid has a grip of iron. Cut to our boy Evan, who is completely unbothered, hanging out with his gorgeous mom, Redine D. Sheridan. As the first wife of the Marquess, she radiates total boss energy while they share a quiet tea session. She hits her son with a gentle, motherly scolding, pouting that he has been way too obsessed with his secret little projects to even kick back and chill with her lately. Evan smoothly covers his tracks, claiming he is just deep diving into artifact lore and getting his fitness gains in. She immediately clicks that the artifact stuff is about that mirrored soul necklace. The exact same ultra-rare item his dad gifted him, but the whole workout routine leaves her totally scratching her head. She completely thought her son was gearing up to be some overpowered magic caster. But our boy just hits her with the hardest truth: everyone has their own destiny to grind. Trying to force a build that does not match your stats is just a recipe for disaster, making everyone miserable in the process. Especially the people trying to control you. Hearing his mature take, she melts and completely greenlights him to follow his own vibe. Because let's be real, his schedule is going to be absolutely brutal starting next year. Suddenly, reality hits our young noble like a truck. The hellish nobility boot camp kicks off at age 10. He literally has one single year before he is drowning in high society history, foreign languages, hardcore math, geography, sword combat, and pure magic theory. Basically, the ultimate VIP survival guide. His mom drops a reality check. Repping the Sheridan bloodline in a hardcore dungeon-based city is no joke. He is carrying some massive weight on his shoulders. Down the line, he is expected to be his older brother right-hand man in running the empire, so he needs to level up fast. But Evan reads right between the lines. What she is actually saying is that the second he hits adulthood, he's going to be tossed into those deadly dungeons to prove his worth. She is honestly shook that her little kid already understands the dark side of their world. But obviously he knows. Our guy literally caught a game over screen because of this exact plotline in his past life. Playing the good son, he swears to grind his studies. Once the academic year drops, of course. But for now, his mom just wants him to live his best life. She practically begs him to go goof off, to roam the streets and act his age, even though the whole town is currently a total disaster zone thanks to that insane monster outbreak. Evan nods along like a sweet angel, but internally, he is already plotting to completely abuse his secret slime grinding method. He is not wasting a single second. With the clock ticking down his final year of freedom, he is determined to max out his stats and launch Phase 2 of his ultimate survival master plan. But to pull off this next-level scheme, he desperately needs the perfect sidekick. Retreating to his bedroom, he flips open his secret cheat sheet. Scanning through the absolute top-tier god-level units from the original game lore, he instantly crosses out Venom Spear and the Blood-Eyed Witch. Which is a tragedy, honestly, because the witch was an absolute powerhouse and gorgeous too. The issue, their spawn locations are completely unknown right now. Then he locks onto a familiar name, Silent Knight. A unit so ridiculously overpowered, they basically broke the game, matching our main character perfectly. Evan remembers this guy was a lethal, cold-blooded killer, rocking dual blades melting into the pitch-black shadows, and one-shotting monstrous threats without making a single sound. But here is the tragic catch with Silent Knight and those elite tiers. Their canon storylines ended in absolute misery. Evan smirks, fully convinced he can rewrite this dark history. This shadow assassin was actually a local Sheridan kid, who became an orphan at just 9 years old during a massive catastrophic dungeon collapse. After that nightmare, he was auctioned off to some sketchy overseas mercs, and only unlocked his insane dormant abilities after being thrown back into the dungeon meat grinder. As our boy connects the dots regarding that massive monster breakout, a light bulb goes off. His mom literally just mentioned the city was still picking up the pieces from a recent outbreak. That means the legendary Silent Knight, one of the absolute most broken characters in existence, is currently wandering around his city. Without missing a beat, he locks in on his new target. He struts straight up to Mabel and casually drops that they are going on a shopping spree. Cut to them riding in a carriage with the poor maid looking utterly baffled. She cannot fathom what they could possibly be buying, considering the streets look like an apocalyptic wasteland right now. Evan stares her dead in the eye and says he is picking up a human being. Mabel's brain completely short-circuits. He casually adds that their map is set straight for the underground slave auction. The sun comes up over a completely wrecked neighborhood, where battered civilians are limping through the rubble-filled alleys. Their fancy carriage bumps along the destroyed commercial district. Inside, Evan breaks down the economic crash, directly tying it to the monsters breaking out of the dungeon. Those freaks of nature absolutely demolished the infrastructure. Mabel chimes in, pointing out that until the construction crews fix this mess, the trade economy is basically dead. She keeps dropping harsh truths, mentioning that the local guilds are still actively hunting down straggler beasts. Our guy totally owns up to the fact that this is literally the worst time for a haul. But they have no choice. If he sleeps on this drop, the streets will be way too packed later. The maid is practically sweating bullets, warning Evan that casually strolling out for a shopping spree right now is a terrible idea, especially considering what he's buying. She's freaking out over him buying literal humans. But our boy stays completely ice cold, brushing off her panic. He drops the facts. The specific auction house they're hitting up is the single government-sanctioned trade hub in all of Sheridan. Sure, the morality of it is completely twisted, but it's heavily monitored and basically the safest spot in the city. Evan mentally flips through his game knowledge in this messed up reality. The kingdom monopolized the trade, practically wiping out underground trafficking rings. But obviously, scumbags still find filthy loopholes to exploit, push people too far, and they snap. Case in point, a legendary rebel from the Demon War 3 storyline. A crimson-haired psycho who literally breathes hellfire, the infamous Blood Witch. Evan remembers their last little encounter perfectly, mainly because she absolutely slaughtered him. The carriage jerks to a halt outside a massive, imposing fortress. Stepping inside, Evan is flanked by his maid and a heavily armored knight. The knight booms their VIP arrival. Evan glances up at the hulking dude Dane, confirming this guy is supposed to be his ultimate meat shield. Dane looks super uncomfortable, muttering that a filthy human market is no place for a high-born noble. But Evan shuts that down instantly, his voice dead serious. He isn't some sheltered rich kid blind to reality. He's not here on a twisted safari or to flex his dad's endless cash. He is here to handpick the exact weapons he needs to survive. Dane argues that the Marquis could just assign elite guards, but Evan hard passes. He knows exactly how that plays out. His dad's handpicked guards all ended up as corpses right next to him in his past life. They push through double doors, greeted by a slick, bald broker. The guy raises an eyebrow, shocked the young lord is pulling up personally. Evan smirks, making it clear he doesn't outsource his survival to anyone else's judgment. He demands a lineup of kids his own age, specifically orphans spawned from the latest catastrophic disaster. The broker warns him that these survivors have gone through absolute hell, selling their own freedom to survive, making them way too feral and stubborn for a noble's typical playmate. Evan doesn't miss a beat. He fires back that desperation breeds extreme loyalty and zero laziness, so he's skipping the tedious skill tests. He isn't looking for polished toys. He wants raw talent to level up right beside him. Absolute monsters, who will have his back when the world goes to hell. The broker shrugs, seeing the dollar signs, and stops arguing. The customer is always right. He leads Evan's crew into a dimly lit holding area packed with exhausted kids. The bald dude clarifies. He filtered out anyone under 12 years old. Evan's eyes dart across the room, analyzing every single face like a hawk. As the guards herd more kids into the lineup, his radar instantly locks onto a dark-skinned kid, rocking deep blue hair and pitch-black, lifeless eyes. Bingo. It's the legendary Silent Knight. Then his vision snaps to a girl with blazing red hair. His blood runs cold. She's a top 5 menace from Demon War 3, a villain practically synonymous with absolute carnage. Dane scoffs, calling these scrawny runts dead weight, and urging Evan to keep browsing. But our protagonist flat out refuses. He points directly at the 2 future bosses, claiming them on the spot. See, in the game's lore, demigods were insanely rare anomalies. They were a freak mutation of humanity that just spawned out of nowhere, cursed with glass cannon bodies and agonizingly slow growth rates. Society treated them like absolute trash, but a tiny percentage of them eventually mutated into god-tier powerhouses. And the 2 shivering runts right in front of him, they are the absolute apex predators of that entire race, the Blood Witch and the Silent Knight. The secret cheat code demigods completely break the game mechanics through dungeon grinding. Every single time they hit a level up underground, the system hands them double the stat buffs of a normal player. Dive deeper, and the multiplier goes totally unhinged, skyrocketing their stats to a level normal humans couldn't dream of touching. But here's the massive catch. Most demigods were way too fragile to even step foot into a dungeon. during the early game. If they tried, they'd get completely wiped out before hitting floor 5. The harsh reality was that 99% of them were nothing but fodder, sacrificed so the top 1% could ascend to godhood. But Evan isn't letting that happen. He vows right then and there to keep these two alive, because their insane scaling belongs to him now. The broker gets super nervous, stuttering out that these kids are basically clearance items costing half the going rate, and he's terrified the Marquis will execute him for selling his heir literal trash. Evan shuts him up, stating he couldn't care less about their market value. He's walking out with his future bodyguards. Deal closed. He officially claims both of them. Fun fact, earlier that day, Evan had actually bribed this exact merchant to act as a talent scout, secretly funneling him any kids matching these ultra-specific descriptions. The bald guy took the deal, swearing absolute silence. Evan smirks internally. He just built an underground pipeline to farm broken demigod recruits. He turns his full attention to his new prizes, getting a massive case of PTSD, remembering their blood-soaked psycho-killing sprees from his past life. The harsh truth, they don't have the luxury of crying over their dead families right now. Evan drops down to their level, promising he isn't going to be a tyrant, and casually asks for their names. The crimson-haired girl flinches, looking wildly confused by a noble actually treating her like a human being. Prompted a second time, she shares a nervous look with the boy, before whispering that her name is Beloa, but her late mother called her Lua. Evan hits her with a soft smile, telling her that he hopes they get close enough for him to earn the right to use that nickname. The blue-haired kid steps up, dropping the name Shine. He glances at Belois, realizing they've been suffering in this hellhole together, but this is literally the very first time he's hearing her actual name. Evan's brain lights up Shine. It's highly ironic for a dude destined to become the edgelord Silent Knight. Our boy formally introduces himself as Evan D. Sheridan, asking them to trust him. Shine bites his lip, visibly torn before daring to speak up. He stares the noble dead in the eye, asking the million-dollar question, why would a billionaire heir buy broken, defective trash like them? The young lord simply smiles, ready to drop the truth. Since Shine is basically the same age, he should already have this figured out. Shine refuses to drop it, demanding to know if this rich kid purchased them just to flex and play twisted mind games. Evan goes dead silent, his eyes darting between the two of them. He drops a heavy truth bomb about how rigged life actually is, looking dead at Shine. The kid nods, fully aware of just how brutal the real world can be. Evan brings up his own insane luck, winning the genetic lottery as a Marquis' second son, basically set for life with zero struggles. He points out how mind-blowing it would be for kids like them to ever catch a break like that. That strikes a major nerve. Shine snaps, spilling the brutal truth about his own messed-up childhood trapped in absolute poverty. He screams that his body is completely worthless, furiously questioning what kind of imaginary blessing Evan is even going on about. Our main guy just smirks. He calls it pure god-tier potential, and he claims both Shine and Belois are absolutely dripping with it. Shine immediately accuses him of capping and trolling them, but Evan shoots back, that staying in denial might feel safer, but it will never fix anything. He challenges them, asking if they seriously want to stay losers forever. Belois finally speaks up, totally confused, asking if she seriously possesses this hidden cheat code too. Evan doubles down. They both have the absolute juice to become absolute monsters. Hearing this triggers a devastating flashback for Belois, remembering her own mom sobbing and apologizing for bringing such a fragile kid into the world. Shine totally gets it, revealing his mom hit him with the exact same guilt trip, but our protagonist completely brushes off that parental pity party, breaking down how their specific type of genius just flies under the radar. Shine is incredibly skeptical, demanding to know how Evan could possibly see it, when even their own flesh and blood totally missed it. That is when Evan drops the ultimate plot twist: he has his own broken ability. Our boy claims he is basically a human radar for spotting hidden prodigies exactly like them. Desperate, the girl grips his sleeve, begging to know if she can genuinely level up, and he hits her with a rock-solid yes. He promises to show them the receipts, but lays out one massive condition: he needs 36 months to make it happen. If they pledge total loyalty for just 3 years, he will guarantee their glow-up. And the kicker, if they hate the results, they can literally walk away scotangent-free. Plus, as long as they ride with him, nobody will ever dare treat them like trash again. Shine instantly throws up a red flag, reminding the noble that they are literal property, but our boy puts his entire family name on the line to lock in that promise. In exchange, once they become insanely overpowered, they belong to him. Belos reads the room perfectly, realizing this rich kid is not running a charity. He bought them because he needs them for a specific mission. Evan puts the ball in their court. Are they willing to bet on his crazy vision, unlock their potential, and hand over their destinies? The damp dungeon cell falls dead, quiet, the cold iron chains still biting into their ankles. Suddenly, the boy makes his ultimate declaration: he is going to survive. There is no way he is going out like a pathetic loser. The girl matches his energy, her eyes locking in with pure determination. Evan asks one last time if they are ready to ride or die with him. Another heavy pause hangs between the kids before the boy finally bows his head softly, admitting he wants to believe the hype. The haunting echoes of his parents constantly apologizing for bringing them into a world of suffering flood his mind. Our protagonist makes a chillingly confident vow. In 3 years, they will literally thank their parents. They will be insanely proud of the fierce, unstoppable warriors they are about to become. That breaks the dam. Tears stream down the girl's face as both kids fiercely grab onto him. Right on cue, the headmaid catches this emotional scene and starts screaming for the backup crew, demanding these filthy street kids get scrubbed down and inspected immediately. Dane pulls the young master aside, questioning what the actual endgame is for these runts. With absolute ice in his veins, he states they will act as his personal shadow squad for now, but their final destination, following him straight into the most lethal dungeons imaginable. The steward completely freaks out, bringing up all the red flags from earlier, but our guy is fully locked in. Nothing is changing his mind. Dane is honestly shook, pointing out how terrifyingly well this little kid just mind-gamed 2 traumatized slaves into total loyalty. He tries to ramble on about childish whims, but the noble sharply shuts him down, making it crystal clear there was zero cap in his promise. These 2 are destined to become absolute units, and in exactly 36 months, Dane will have to eat his words. Realizing he cannot win this argument, the man sighs and gestures indoors, guaranteeing the kids will be dropped off the second they are squeaky clean. Fast forward, Evan meets his new squad. Shine gives him the silent treatment at first, before finally breaking the ice to bring up that suspicious favor Evan mentioned earlier. He is totally paranoid about the catch, asking if they are just going to be scrubbing floors and serving tea forever. The young master keeps it 100% real. He only wants a single thing out of this deal. They need to become his ultimate bodyguards. They parrot the word back, totally stunned. He taps his own chest, yeah, protect him. The boy immediately fires back that they are literal string beans with 0 combat skills. But our protagonist just waves off their doubts, promising they are going to get ridiculously buff. And once they hit that peak level, they are going to use that raw power to keep him alive. He lays down the ground rules. They are practically superglued to his side 24/7, only separating to grind their stats. They are his new VIP security detail. Shine's brain starts working immediately, piecing together that this rich kid must have a massive target on his back coming up. Evan smirks, praising the kid's massive brain for catching on to the vibe. He straight up admits that crazy danger is coming, and he desperately needs their muscle. As the kid starts overthinking everything out loud, the young master drops the VIP info. He has a top-secret training regimen, and they are the only ones getting access to it. Sparking with newfound hype, the girl whispers that she is all in. He looks her dead in the eye, calling her by name, and swears she will eventually one-shot monsters, way more terrifying than their current nightmare. Now that his cards are on the table, he flips the script, demanding to know what they want out of this insane deal. Once again, the 2 kids echo his words, completely mind-blown. Our guy drops the ultimate deal, have his back, and he'll make their wildest dreams come true. Flexing his title as the second son of the Marquis, Evan throws down a blank check. Gold, crazy, high status, or straight-up liberty. You name it, he buys it. He challenges them to spit out their deepest desires. The young demi-human lets those words sink in his eyes, sparking with serious resolve. Then he snaps. He screams out his one true goal: absolute annihilation of every single monster breathing. 0 survivors. This kid's trauma runs deep. Just like his original video game lore, he's carrying a massive burning vendetta against those beasts. Shine locks eyes with our main character. Evan doesn't blink, promising to turn that bloody revenge fantasy into reality. There's just one catch. To get ridiculously OP, diving headfirst into lethal dungeons isn't an option, it's mandatory. The kid flinches. He completely admits he's terrified of getting wiped out down there since his stats are basically 0 right now. Dripping with absolute confidence, Evan guarantees survival as long as Shine follows his exact blueprint. The boy freezes, weighing the heavy choice. But if gambling his life means wiping those creatures off the map, he's fully locked in. Evan instantly shakes on it. With the deal sealed, the young noble pivots his attention to Balua, waiting for her demands. Now, lore-wise, this girl was an absolute menace. Not a demon, not a beast, but a ruthless witch who gave players absolute nightmares. She literally triggered an unavoidable boss fight. Looking at this tiny kid, Evan struggles to picture her turning into a hardcore humanity-ending villain. Staring at the floor, she confesses she's clueless. All she knows is that freezing, starving, and kicking the bucket are definitely off her agenda. Getting a power boost sounds nice, sure, but beyond basic survival, her mind is completely blank. Evan drops the tough guy act. Gently grasping her hands, he whispers her name, reminding her that expecting a 7-year-old to have her whole life figured out is crazy. He completely validates her feelings, promising they'll crack the code to her destiny as a team. Taking a deep breath, she slowly nods, ready to figure out her purpose one day at a time. Boom. Our guy officially launches his secret hardcore training arc. Throwing them straight into the deep end would be a total disaster though. Why? Because demi-humans have insanely horrible experience point scaling. Even when they finally level up, the stat boosts are totally pathetic. But our strategist already mapped out the ultimate glitch. Their golden ticket to becoming absolute units, skill mastery. Forget the boring textbooks and theory crafting. They are diving straight into the practical grind. The rule is simple: unlocking abilities equals raw power. Some perks kick in the exact second you acquire them. We're talking instant buffs to energy magic reserves and pure muscle. These permanent passive traits give you massive lifelong advantages. Take the elite Shurden Knights and their legendary blade arts, for example. Mastering that form didn't just make them lethal with a weapon, it permanently mutated their base stats into superhuman territory. Evan is betting hard that their current heavy lifting routine will evolve into a similar god-tier trait. Hooked on the idea, the duo leans in closer. Can grinding these abilities actually turn them into monsters? Breaking down the meta, Evan reveals there are countless unlock methods, but they're zeroing in on two. First up, insane, mind-numbing repetition. You spam a move until the system physically hardwires it into your body. The second route, getting initiated into an elite faction to absorb their ancient guarded techniques. They are going to abuse both systems simultaneously. He points out a crazy lore drop back in the demonic crusades. Even low-ranking maids and butlers were insanely tanky. How? Because high society families secretly injected their absolute best hidden arts into their staff. This basically created a hierarchy of overpowered servants, and obviously the richer and more famous the bloodline, the more busted their secret abilities were. The kids hang on to every single word, realizing they just struck absolute gold. Because the Shurden Empire doesn't just hold the Marquis title, they practically own the most broken top-tier legacy skills in the entire realm. Eyes wide, they ask if they actually get to touch that forbidden knowledge. Evan smirks. Yes, but the grind is going to be pure torture. Since their base stats are currently sitting at rock bottom, their progression speed is going to drag heavily compared to normal recruits. To even catch up to the average grunt, they'll have to put in double, maybe triple, the blood, sweat, and tears. But if they survive the gauntlet, they'll forge an unbreakable core of infinite endurance and magical power. That's the secret recipe for carrying raids and dominating dungeons. But Evan lays down a harsh reality check. He can open the door, but he can't walk through it for them. It's all on them now. Staring down the intimidating road ahead, Evan already knows they've got that dog in them to pull it off. Fueled by raw trust and loyalty, they lock in their choice. Towering over his new prodigies, the young noble sizes them up one last time. Checking their physical limits, he asks if they can actually stand on their own 2 feet. Both fiercely confirm they're good to go. A sharp clap echoes through the room instantly, summoning a blonde maid who rolls her eyes, fully expecting another spoiled rich kid tantrum. Shutting down her attitude completely, Evan demands her full attention for a highly specific mission. Aiming a finger straight at his new recruits, he orders her to become their personal drill instructor. The maid totally shorts out, echoing his insane request in pure shock. Wondering if this was the so-called favor he had in mind, he points out that the intel he pulled on these kids is an absolute game changer. He begs her to step up, hyping them as his future ride-or-die loyalists. Sure, they are a little squishy right now, but their raw potential is completely off the charts. She locks it in, deciding to personally mold the girl into a powerhouse, while tossing the boy over to the head butler's brutal boot camp, casually adding that this hardcore method will work wonders on him too. Minutes later, Shine cautiously asks what kind of absolute demon the head butler actually is. Before anyone can drop a single hint, a shadowy silhouette materializes, asking if the young master summoned him. Evan smirks internally. This is going to be a total breeze. He just has to weaponize his puppy dog eyes like always to secure Shine's safety, even if he has to sacrifice every last ounce of his dignity to pull it off. He pitches his voice up sweetly, begging the butler for a massive favor. Cut to Shine, his mind violently dragged back to a nightmare of scorching flames and agonizing screams. A desperate voice echoes in his memories, begging him to run away, sparking that deep burning vow he made to survive and slaughter every last monster that ruined his life. Bam! A booming voice shatters the flashback, barking at him to snap out of it. The butler is right up in his face, demanding absolute focus. The guy roars again, flaming him for acting totally washed after just a few measly hours of warm-ups, swearing that if he keeps flopping like this, he will never survive. A single pathetic chore as a servant of the Marquis. Then he literally blitzes forward, drilling it into the kid's skull that raw stamina is the ultimate baseline, and any lackey of the Shurden bloodline needs to be ready to throw down for their master. He drops a harsh reminder that afternoon theory grinds are up next, meaning Shine better stop burning out his energy. Calling a brutal 10-minute breather, the butler chuckles, muttering about how insanely satisfying it is to watch a rookie level up. Evan slides into the scene, agreeing the kid's gas tank is practically empty, but admits the boy is a total prodigy in everything else, boasting insane combat IQ for a kid, a razor-sharp mind, and that stubborn never-back-down grit. Deciding it is time to crank the training arc all the way up to max difficulty, he promises he has enough healing gear to keep them from flatlining. Right on cue, a maid sweeps in, dropping the news that the Marquis requested his presence. The young master gives a quick nod and strides indoors. Inside the lavish study, the Marquis frowns, clearly stressed that his boy hasn't touched grass in forever. The kid quickly defends himself, explaining he has been holed up trying to crack the hidden mechanics of his strange necklace. The Marquis leans back, listening closely, before gently warning him not to blow himself up. Right in the middle of their chat, the Marquis casually drops a massive bomb. The artifact is an actual growth-type item, designed to infinitely evolve right alongside its wielder. He breaks it down, revealing it can unlock insane new buffs once highly specific conditions are triggered. He confesses he was completely clueless about this feature until the necklace literally synced to Evan, pointing directly at the piece so the kid can witness it firsthand. Tapping the core jewel and asking if Evan can spot that faint toxic green pulse vibrating in the middle. He notes that the second that glow consumes the entire pendant, the artifact is going to hit its next tier, and since it is already flaring up, the upgrade is right around the corner. Our boy mentally pauses, flashing back to the original game, where this necklace was total trash tier loot nobody touched, meaning he never cared about its scaling potential. Now panic creeps in as he wonders if triggering this upgrade will accidentally hyper-buff his training slimes too. The terrifying visual of these gelatinous blobs evolving into unkillable juggernauts, completely immune to his punches, sends a cold shiver down his spine. Getting wiped out by a starter slime would be incredibly embarrassing, but hitting pause on his daily grind is absolutely out of the question. He forcibly shoves the paranoia aside, figuring a buffed slime is still basically just jello. Shifting gears, the Marquis asks why Evan completely drained his allowance to buy out new servants, genuinely curious if it was just a charity case. Evan instantly denies it, claiming it was a guaranteed investment, knowing these two will become absolute beasts who will guard his life, which perfectly explains why he threw them straight into the fire under the head butler and head maid. The Marquis absorbs the logic, nodding as he decides to trust his son's crazy intuition, but throws down a stern warning. These two are his personal project, meaning their failures will fall entirely on his shoulders. Evan doesn't even flinch boldly, stating that they belong to his crew now. Boom. A clean 3-month time skip. Shine looks remarkably sharp, completely strapped up in a pristine servant's fit facing the young master, while Beloa rocks her flawless combat-made uniform. Evan paces around them doing a brutal visual sweep, while the head butler intensely monitors the vibe. He casually points out that while they are not quite at max level yet, their stamina bars finally match the veteran crew. The young master is genuinely stunned by the insane grind they survived, flashing back to the fact that typical rookies stepping into a dungeon are basically cannon fodder, needing at least 3 full years to stop trembling. Yet this dynamic duo literally speedran that whole process in a mere 3 months. With absolute conviction, he vows that if they ever fail, it will be a reflection of his own bad leadership. The girl quietly chimes in, insisting she poured her soul into the grind, while the butler pitches a new schedule, slice their hellish physical training in half so they can start shadowing the young master full-time. Evan immediately gives the green light, admitting that having them act as his personal shadows was the master plan from day one. He shoots a sly look, hinting at a secret endgame he is cooking up, which forces the butler to swear he will prep whatever crazy supplies are needed. Moments later, a massive crate is hauled into the room, and the noble flexes, an incredibly ornate book, hyping it up as a broken VIP perk. Only he has the clearance to activate. Tearing the lid off the stash, he instantly locks in on their starter gear, a lethal pair of twin daggers for Shine, and a mystical glowing lamp for Beloa. Shine wraps his hands tightly around the golden razor-sharp hilts, while his partner perfectly balances the glowing relic. Evan breaks down the lore, explaining these are not your average basic weapons, but extremely rare artifacts, remembering how the player base completely slept on them in the original game, even though he secretly knows they are massively overpowered. To prove it, he violently dashes forward, turning into a human tornado as the blades carve brilliant, deadly arcs through the air, completely shredding a thick tree trunk into flying splinters with pure kinetic force. He pauses, looking back to ask if Shine locked onto the combo. The kid instantly nods, with burning excitement fully grasping. Looking for the ultimate speedrun tactic for twin daggers, Evan introduces his absolute cheat code, a move dubbed the Beehive Feller. Our young master physically breaks down the stance. He snaps his blades into a tight crossguard, drops his center of gravity, and lets the momentum drag the slash straight down. The real secret: frame-perfect timing. You literally animation cancel the strike halfway through to conserve stamina. Shine immediately mirrors the posture, while our protagonist breaks down the exact mechanics of brutally halting a swing mid-air. To spam the move faster, Evan basically tells him to turn off his brain and let muscle memory take over. The loyal bodyguard simply nods, white-knuckling his weapons. They lock into a flawless rhythm. Shine grinds the combo relentlessly, sharpening his footwork until every single blade arc looks terrifyingly crisp. Still locked in position, this prodigy casually masters dual-wielding fundamentals in less than 24 hours. Cut back indoors, where Beloa is grinding her own magic lamp task under Evan's watchful eye. He reveals that spamming this specific artifact is literally a glitch to power level her raw mana control. And for any mage wanting to become crazy, overpowered, manipulating your core capacity is the absolute baseline. Constantly flickering this thing on and off forces the system to adapt passively, upgrading her stats. We are talking cast times, raw destructive output, regeneration rates, and maximum magic pool. But here's the craziest hidden buff every single time she sparks it. Her elemental fire affinity permanently scales up with 0 level cap. So the deeper her connection gets with the heat, the more apocalyptic her infernos will become down the line. It is basically the ultimate beginner-to-boss artifact. Just as she sparks the flame, silently measuring her progress against Shine Redeen completely catches her off guard. The matriarch locks onto the glowing object, demanding answers. Below stammers out a respectful greeting. Redeen instantly identifies the gear as an ancient family relic that definitely was not supposed to leave the vault. The dots connect. She recognizes this is the stray kid Evan adopted, putting together that her son just gifted away a priceless treasure. Belos nervously admits. The young master handed it over specifically to grind her magic stats. Redine just smirks, deeply amused that her boy casually dropped an ultra-complex artifact on a novice just to teach her the ropes, especially since he literally has 0 magical talent. Belos flares up instantly, defending her savior. She refuses to let anyone call him weak. Loving the fierce loyalty, Redeen steps up and offers to personally mentor her in some intense secret witch arts. There is just one rule: Evan cannot know a thing. Fast forward and phase 2 of their secret boot camp is going flawlessly. Belois is practically spamming the relic, heavily expanding her energy reserves and skyrocketing her mastery. Over in the melee camp, Shine remains locked in on his dual blade mechanics, obsessively drilling the animation cancel for that elite tier beehive strike. Meanwhile, our main guy spends the next few months literally dual-wielding slime summons, flexing his newly unlocked ability to control 2 mobs at once. Gripping Mirasul's necklace, he flashes back to his original strategy of unequipping the cursed jewelry the second he hits a specific level cap. But here's the wild plot twist: it is an evolving item. As he levels up, the summoned mobs scale right alongside him. Sure, they become absolute tanks to defeat, but the experience drop is massively multiplied. Staring down this insane farming exploit, he realizes chasing better gear is useless right now. He needs a permanent passive ability. And just like that immortality project, Phase 3 is officially greenlit. Using his dual slime summoning technique to trigger the grind, Evan kicks off his wildest scheme yet securing absolute poison immunity. His endgame, maxing out his resistance until literally 0 lethal substances can touch his health bar. But there is a massive roadblock: the budget. The required toxins are so outrageously priced that unless the head butler gives the thumbs up, he is completely locked out of the family treasury. Maybelle catches wind of this and instantly pries into his material list. Evan shoots down her weird servant master fantasies right out of the gate, offering her a legit business partnership instead. She stares back blankly, completely lost until he drops the massive bombshell that he is launching his own startup. A little while later, his older brother Eric rolls up, wondering why he got summoned. Evan skips the small talk, diving straight into the city patrol mission their dad dumped on Eric. It is basically a mandatory vibe check, where the noble heirs have to step outside and learn how the streets actually operate. The young mastermind casually offers to carry the project, and Eric bites. Sliding a heavily detailed document across the desk, Evan watches as his older brother squints at the intel. Eric assumes this was just plagiarized from some informants. Nope. Our boy states these are purely his own genius-level deductions. Blown away, Eric admits, the data is flawless, realizing this single sheet tracks literally every major server event in the city over the last half year. It breaks down the exact trigger conditions of incidents, ripple effects, and flawlessly predicts the upcoming market economy. We are talking untouched niche items and easy-to-craft recipes using dirt-cheap materials. Evan straight up pitches that he wants to weaponize this meta-knowledge to launch a side hustle, secure a massive cash flow, and secretly map out the underground. Eric tells him this is way above his pay grade and drags him straight to the final boss, their dad. Standing before the marquee, our guy drops his masterclass presentation. The patriarch immediately spots the catch. This blueprint is way too massive for some cute lemonade stand. He flat out tells Evan he lacks the bandwidth to run an empire. Smirking, the kid reveals he only wants a slice of the pie. Pushed for specifics, he claims the pharmaceutical monopoly, leaving the rest of the gold mine for his dad to farm. Staring at the pages, the marquis finally gets hit with the realization this whole portfolio was a bait and switch. It was an information trade from step 1. He glares at his youngest son, demanding to know if this mastermind play was intentional. Even though Evan plays dumb and swears he just wanted to show a little hustle, the marquis looks over at Eric, absolutely terrified, and wondering if this genius monster is actually his kid. Eric fires right back, openly questioning if this kid is even his actual blood relative. Evan slams the documents onto the table, demanding an immediate sit-down with the noble vassals. The marquis drops the verdict: it is officially time to level up the enterprise Evan has been secretly running. Once the council gathers, the room splits. Half argue the blueprint needs to stay anonymous to hold weight, while the rest swear the sheer genius of the proposal speaks for itself. One suit speaks up, totally baffled, as to why Evan would target the medical trade when it generates absolute zero profit. The marquis backs him up. He flashes back to his son, breaking down how the entire industry hit a dead end purely because the holy priests gatekeep all the healing. Our boy steps up spitting pure facts. A leader's #1 duty to their people is basic healthcare. He calls out the temple's shady hustle. By refusing to treat injuries with anything but divine magic, they practically force all the massive donation money right into their own pockets. Top-tier dungeon raiders and filthy rich elites get instant heals while the average civilians straight up bleed out in the waiting room. He breaks down the ultimate vision. Traditional medicine is the only safety net during real emergencies. If they can mass-produce basic health potions and flood the market, prices crash, and suddenly survival in the slums skyrockets. Eyes burning with pure determination, he announces the operation is a go. The Marquis does not hesitate. He puts his own legendary title on the line, flexing that with his backing, those greedy priests wouldn't dare try to block them. Evan actually pauses. He questions if picking a fight with the literal state religion is a smart move, but his dad just waves it off like it is nothing. The powerhouse patriarch vows to take this all the way to the emperor himself, if he has to, framing the whole power play as a heroic move for the commoners. He greenlights everything: the business expansion, custom item crafting, and launching the official pharmacy. Evan bows his head respectfully. But deep down, his true massive brain agenda remains rock solid. He plans to hoard every single toxic drop and rare herb on the server, pushing his physical limits, until max-level immunity locks down his absolute survival. The second the Marquis drops, the official stamp construction crews hit the ground running. The facility pops up in record time. But there is a massive glitch. 0 pharmacists want the job, terrified of stepping on the local temple's turf. This holy interference boils Evan's blood. It triggers dark flashbacks to his past life in Demon War 3, where the church's constant sabotages turned simple herb farming into an absolute nightmare, spiked the dungeon difficulty to insane levels, and wiped health items off the map. Back then, it literally forced the main character to drag an alchemist into the party, or grind the crafting skill solo. Done playing games, our boy decides to just brew the elixirs himself. Still, a huge reality check hits. Who in their right mind is dropping cash on medicine brewed by a literal 9-year-old? Then a galaxy brain idea sparks. He could fake being a simple apprentice under an established pro, flex some insane prodigy-level growth to win them over, and secretly pull all the strings from the shadows. Plus, he already has a massive cheat code, a god-tier potion. Recipe ripped straight from his gaming days to claim as his original creation. The moment Shine steps into the room, Evan instantly presses him for updates on the headhunt. Shine takes an L on finding a direct hire, but reveals a backup strat: he tracked down an underworld fixer who specializes in finding anyone. Cue a bald man rolling in clutching a stack of files. Our protagonist immediately clocks the guy. It is the big boss of the shadow market. The trafficker lays out the intel, revealing a goldmine of independent alchemists, operating off the grid beyond the city limits. He slides over a VIP list, telling the kid to pick his poison. Evan scans the sheet, his eyes instantly snapping to one legendary name: Bernard Garcia, age 63. 0 hesitation. He orders the fixer to bag this exact guy and drag him here. Fast forward 4 days, and Shine is walking the grumpy veteran straight into the high-class mansion, where the old-timer drops the most raw, unfiltered introduction imaginable. The bald fixer also brought a bonus pull, a cute young assistant rocking a classic maid aesthetic, introducing herself as Hannah. Shine immediately flares up, ready to throw down over the old man's blatant disrespect toward his young lord, but the boomer bites right back. Evan cuts the tension, stepping up with ice-cold confidence to introduce himself. Unfazed, the veteran tells the kid to just call him Grandpa Bernard. Tossing the fixer some well-earned praise, Evan casually drops a reminder to keep the radar pinging for any rare demi-human kids, strictly off the books before sending the bald guy packing. Watching this literal child orchestrate mafia-level deals, Bernard genuinely starts sweating over whether this kid is human. Reading his mind, Evan drops his single-digit age, sending the old-timer into a booming fit of laughter before he finally gets down to business, demanding to know what exactly this pint-sized noble wants. When backed into a corner, the veteran draws a hard line. He admits he heard wild street rumors that our boy is secretly an alchemy god, operating on a level the old man cannot even fathom, promising serious blowback if this turns out to be some spoiled brat's prank. Completely stone-faced, Evan slaps a massive wager on the table. If the kid can blow his mind with an unknown technique, Bernard is locked into a 5-year contract. Bernard takes the bait but sets his own trap. If the kid fumbles, Evan becomes his personal loot drop, forced to spill every single secret as his lowly apprentice. Smirking like a final boss, Evan shakes on it instantly. They hop in a carriage, rolling up to the absolute unit of a building known as Brothers Pharmacy. Evan casually flexes that this fortress is his new office. The second they step foot inside, Bernard practically begs to see the magic happen. But Evan slow burns the reveal, dragging them into the cultivation lab first. Rows of glowing, toxic-looking purple herbs are actively mutating in incubators. He casually slams down a few glowing vials and drops a masterclass on accelerated botanical growth. He dubs his creation a literal cheat code, praising its glitch-like speed and brain-dead simplicity. even though the crafting specs require late-game knowledge from the Demon War 4 era. Swirling the mysterious liquid, Evan looks dead at the pro and asks if he recognizes it. The legendary veteran straight up malfunctions. He stammers out a solid no, muttering the potion's name like he has seen a ghost while Hannah parrots him in pure shock. With both of them totally paralyzed by the sheer flex of this technique, Evan hits them with the patch notes. Top-tier herbs have a longer cooldown, and spamming the formula nerfs the final output. Sure, it constantly craves fresh ingredients, but this elixir straight up unlocks massive-scale herb farming. Bernard just sits there absolutely humbled. He spent his whole life convinced alchemy had peaked, only to get schooled by a literal kid. A smirk finally breaks through the old man's wrinkles. He mutters that his final years won't be so boring after all. But Evan isn't playing around. He slides over a contract, bumping the term from 5 years to a whopping 50. He demands that the veterans sign it immediately. The absolute gravity of the moment hits Bernard like a truck, and his shaky hand grabs the quill. With that locked down, our boy Evan dives right back into his Demon War lore Bible. He grinds through his daily routine, constantly tweaking those character stats to perfection. Fast forward, the whole squad huddles around a table stacked with magical flora and glowing vials. Evan calls the shots, laying out Phase 1, sweep the entire city, for every single medicinal plant they can find. Once they bleed the local market dry, they'll expand their turf. Plus, he points out a genius loophole: exhausted adventurers are always dumping their leftover stash. To sweeten the deal, Bernard pitches a big-brain marketing strategy: toss out free trial potions to the street vendors. Evan instantly greenlights the idea. He breaks down the math: crafting a budget-friendly, highly durable item means they can flood the entire city's market. In his head, Evan is already counting the bags. Sure, they are selling for pennies now, but volume is everything. And those razor-thin profit margins are just the starting line. Give it time, and their little pharmacy will monopolize the entire regional supply chain. Bernard starts sweating over rival guilds trying to sabotage them, but Evan shuts that down fast. The Marquis family name is the ultimate VIP shield. Nobody is touching their hustle. Since our MC can't exactly micromanage a shop every single day, he assigns Hannah to be Bernard's right-hand woman. Then he pulls Mabel aside for a serious chat. He looks her dead in the eye and drops a bomb he needs to stay in the shadows. He is making her the literal face of this booming enterprise. Stepping up as the CEO proxy is a massive flex. When he asks if she is built for that kind of pressure, the room goes dead silent. Then she locks eyes with him. She hasn't just been waiting, she's been plotting for this exact moment. She tells him to step back and watch her work, swearing on her life to protect his reputation. Anyone foolish enough to block their path, she promises to crush them herself. Loving that cutthroat energy, Evan hands over the keys to the vault. She is now officially the boss of their entire botanical stockpile, controlling every single ingredient flowing into the lab. Cut to exactly 1 week later, total chaos. Brothers Pharmacy just went insanely viral, and the line is wrapped around the block. The storefront is getting absolutely mobbed. People are desperately swapping raw plants for those low-tier health pots. And with a legend like Bernard Garcia backing the brand, the hype is undeniably real. Demand skyrockets off the charts. Mabel steps up to the plate, announcing they are snatching up everything: healing blooms, deadly toxins, you name it all, in exchange for their liquid gold. That bold move drags in massive waves of new scavengers. The reviews are insane, with Evan overhearing some hyped-up warrior bragging that this cheap juice actually outshines a holy cleric's magic. Hearing this, Bernard flexes his ego, grinning that no basic-tier brewer would ever have the guts to slap their own name on a product. Meanwhile, up in the VIP suites, the Marquis is staring down a financial report. He squints at the ridiculous numbers, asking if that is the gross revenue. Nope. His jaw drops when he finds out that is pure, unadulterated profit after paying the overhead. The man is left speechless, finally realizing his kid is an absolute prodigy. To keep up with the insane momentum, they instantly scout 2 top-tier brewers from the guild. In no time, they create a complete monopoly over Dungeon City's flora. We are talking national buzz. Collectors and masters from everywhere are flooding into Sheridan just to get a taste. Riding this massive wave, Evan concocts something completely unhinged, a glowing purple tea slapped with a literal skull warning. The squad starts panicking, but our boy stays incredibly chill. He explains it is a microdosed cocktail of toxins and cures, explicitly designed to hack their poison resistance. To prove his point, he deadass downs the whole cup without flinching. Mabel is screaming that he is going to end his own life. Evan just wipes his mouth and drops a cold one-liner: he is chugging this, exactly so he doesn't catch a game over later. He slides a fresh glass over to Shine, daring him to take a hit. Shine immediately backs down, sweating bullets. But out of nowhere, Balua steps up to the plate fully, ready to risk it all. The headmaid goes absolutely ballistic, shrieking at her to drop the cup before this turns into a mass tragedy. Right in the middle of this total chaos, the calendar date hits her like a ton of bricks. March. She blurts out that Evan is about to hit the big one to 0. His 10th birthday is basically tomorrow. Time practically freezes for our MC. A whole year has vanished since he respawned into this body. And with intense aristocratic boot camp creeping up fast, He knows his freestyle training days are numbered. Shine, looking confused, suggests they just spill the tea and expose their real power levels to the family. Evan shoots that idea down instantly. The trauma of his past weak character deaths is still way too fresh. Changing tactics, Shine pitches a wild idea. Let's raid the dungeon. Once again, Evan hits him with a hard refusal. None of them, not him, not Shine, not Balua, are even close to being dungeon ready. Shine starts getting pushy, demanding a solid reason. Evan coldly reminds him of the timeline. They still have 24 months left on their training pact. He lays down the law. They don't step foot in a labyrinth until their stats are absolutely maxed out. Shine tries to argue back, hyping up their massive power spikes, but Evan verbally shuts him down on the spot. He warns the kid that they are nowhere near the level cap. Taking a breath, Evan gets real with his crew, validating that their grind over the last 12 months has been insane. He throws it back to day one when they were just thrilled to not be totally useless compared to normal kids, right before they started flexing on everyone else. Shine immediately gets defensive, swearing he hasn't let the power go to his head, especially not in front of his boss. Evan's gaze turns ice cold. Even elite-tier veterans get wiped out down there, he states. But noticing the tension drop, he quickly softens his tone, reminding the kid they still have the surface world to grind experience points. Rushing now means an early grave. He demands bulletproof preparation to guarantee 0 casualties. Staring him down, Evan asks if he can hold off, and Shine finally nods. Balua tries to play peacekeeper, begging Evan to dial back the intensity, but Shine just laughs it off, pointing out. Sighing about being just 8 years old, Mabel drops a crate of glowing green herbs on the table. She explains. It is their weekly stash of deadly poisons and meds. Evan instantly clocks it as pattern F and gives her a solid nod of thanks. She then drops the news that Bernard is stressing over their massive workload, practically begging for more hands. Boom, lightbulb moment, they decide to bring Hannah on board as their brand new assistant pharmacist. Mabel hypes up the girl's serious glow-up in skills. Then Evan pivots, asking about the temple's latest moves. Shine jumps in, revealing that dropping a massive pharmacy right in the central district has the temple totally sweating. Mabel backs this up, confirming she already spilled the tea to the Marquis. But then she side-eyes Evan, wondering if he is still obsessed with his crazy slime-crushing routine. Evan just smirks, daydreaming about popping slimes before they can even let out a squeak. To help out, Mabel pitches using a relic that massively buffs his grip strength. Shine almost brushes the idea off until a light bulb goes off. He remembers a strength-boosting artifact that should be a total breeze to snatch up. Mabel instantly connects it to the legendary Bloodstained Fist event from Demon War 3, throwing out a massive red flag about the insane conditions attached to it. Flashbacks hit Evan hard. He remembers a wild gaming event that only triggers once his bond with Shine hits a certain level. On one highly specific birthday, his loyal bro hands over a pair of completely cursed, blood-soaked gloves, swearing they offer a massive power trip. Take the gloves, bad move. His attack's tank skills completely glitch out, monsters swarm him, and it is game over. Reject them. Shine keeps the cursed gear, dives into a dungeon, and gets wiped out when his magic fizzles. Total lose-lose situation, right there. Sure, the artifact heavily buffs raw power, but it straight up cancels out any weapon you hold. You only get the insane stat boost if you are throwing hands. Armed with this cheat code knowledge, Evan realizes these gloves are literally perfect for his slime hunting hustle, since he always fights empty-handed anyway. Hyped up, he rallies the squad for a massive shopping spree, totally steering Mabel away from the mainstream storefronts. He drops a truth bomb. Those places only sell cheap knockoffs. Real dungeon crawlers would never be caught dead pawning legit relics at some basic market. Shine, totally clueless, asks where the real loot goes. Evan breaks it down. Top-tier explorers either hoard the gear for themselves, flip them at sketchy, high-stakes auctions, or end up getting jumped and robbed. Pure greed runs the whole game. Shine is mind-blown that people would literally kill over one drop. But Evan hits him with the cold, hard facts. A single artifact can completely rewrite your destiny. Shine immediately flexes, swearing he would never fall for that greedy trap. Belois totally backs him up, pointing out his class makes him completely immune to that kind of corruption. Evan admits it is pretty tough to prove you are built differently in this crazy world, but gives them a genuine heartfelt thanks for having his back, and gets back to business as the crew asks where they are hitting next. With zero hesitation, he reveals he has a few highly specific spots left on his radar. He is half expecting his target loot to be gone by now. Still, he points straight ahead, locking in their final destination. Breaking it down, Evan holds up a finger. He explains that some totally unhinged explorers actually try chowing down on raw monster corpses, even though those bodies are pumped full of deadly toxins. Outside, the dungeon borders juggling that kind of poison and wild mana is basically a death sentence. He adds that only heavily licensed pros are allowed to feast on that stuff, while the black market smuggles the rest. Rumor has it that eating mana-field beasts gives you a massive power spike, though Evan quickly shoots that down as pure cap. Shine chuckles, pointing out that if those stats were real, their hardcore young master would have force-fed them that meat by now. Evan just shrugs, hinting that digesting poison might actually stack up some insane toxic resistance. The loyal maid instantly panics, begging him not to pull a stunt like that. But our boy chills her out, swearing he will not, and makes it crystal clear that this butcher shop run has absolutely nothing to do with buying dinner. Stepping up to the sketchy dual-blade butcher shop, the owner glares out, demanding to know who is there. Evan holds eye contact and tells him to drop the act. There is no need to waste time, the butcher knows exactly who they are, and they know his secret too. Caught out, the man smirks. He admits the rumors about the Sheridan heir being an absolute menace were totally true and waves them into the back room. The butcher sizes him up, pointing out a VIP, like Evan definitely did not come to haggle over some prime cuts of steak. He asks if the young master is here to bust his illegal operation. Instead, Evan just points dead at the random item clutched in the butcher's hand. Evan drops a bomb. That piece of junk is actually insanely valuable, and the butcher is totally clueless. He challenges the guy to guess its real worth. The deal is simple. Hand over the loot, and Evan will scrub his shady reputation spotless. But the stubborn butcher pushes back, thinking it is way too late to play the good guy. Evan has dealt with stubborn people like this before. He warns the butcher that a high-tier artifact like that will stay completely dormant for a total nobody. Then our boy hits him right in the feels, bringing up the man's deeply buried, abandoned dream of becoming a pro chef. The butcher literally freezes in shock. Dangling the kingdom's elite monster cooking license, Evan offers to fast-track a recommendation and give him a second shot at life, if he just hands over the goods. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife, until the defeated owner finally asks what Evan really wants. Cut back to the mansion, where Shine and Balois hover their hands over a wicked blade and a glowing crimson gem sitting on the table. Evan flashes back to their chaotic raids at Crimson Stir Fry and the infamous Orc Bar, where they totally cleaned out the hidden loot. These items sitting here, the ultimate flex of their massive haul. Up until this exact second, neither the sword nor the gem had found a worthy master. Shine grips the hilt instantly, feeling the insane magic pulsing through the steel. Meanwhile, Balois brushes the gem, feeling it practically burn with raw power. Their master just watches from the shadows, smirking. He knows exactly what is about to go down. Before this total radio silence from these relics, Shine hefts the blade, basically asking the room if the thing is just a busted prop. Evan nods but pushes them to dig deeper. He drops the lore. These two specific pieces of loot weren't picked at random. Out of all of Sheridan's secret stash, their ownership codes are completely glitched. Breaking down the bug, he reveals the catch to wield the twin blood dual blades. You gotta make contact with the crimson plate. But to unlock the Jade Flame Sphere, you literally have to touch twin blood. It's a massive dev oversight, a total coding disaster that completely scrambled their unlock requirements. Flashback to his past life, trusting the official strategy guide and taking endless L's. Grinding for intel and grinding useless quests, only to finally clock that the game itself was basically trolling anyone stupid enough to waste years hunting it. That is exactly why he scooped them both up together. Our guy makes it clear, these are straight up the most broken in-game weapons Sheridan has to offer. Balois respects the massive brainplay, but Shine is still side-eyeing the situation, so the young master just tells them to swap gear and give it another shot, promising they're about to strike gold. The second they trade, boom, pure kinetic energy. Blinding light supercharges Shine's blade, while absolute hellfire wraps around Balois. Now wielding their true legendary drops, they stand there, while Evan just trips out over how a literal software bug survived the transition into reality. He compares it to using a janky old recipe and accidentally cooking up a Michelin star meal. Bottom line, the stats on these weapons absolutely completely destroy standard summoned gear. It honestly throws him into a mental tailspin. Cut to Evan, remembering his old setup hunched over a monitor, obsessing over this exact game. He starts spiraling, questioning his own existence, wondering if he is even a real human being, or just code dreaming inside a simulation. Balois, clutching her pulsing crimson orb, starts breaking down its insane magic seal, while Shine stares at his twin blades like he just won the lottery. Evan snaps back, realizing that what he used to write off as a dev screw-up might actually be the universe handing him a cheat code. Shine notices him zoning out, but Evan brushes it off, saying he is just hyped to see them geared up, and drops a random thank you that leaves them both speechless. Shine is like, wait, why are you thanking us? But Balois shuts that down, reminding him who the real VIP is, for blessing them with god-tier loot. Realizing he messed up, Shine quickly bows his head, and Balois echoes the respect, calling him their young master. Flipping the switch back to boss mode, Evan announces it is showtime, slamming a gnarly pair of gauntlets onto the desk. He admits he dropped a massive bag of gold at the Orc pub for these fighting back dark flashbacks of how, in the original playthrough, this exact piece of armor triggered a brutal death screen for both him and the main character. Reliving that trauma, he white-knuckles the leather, grounding himself in how much he has leveled up thanks to Mirasol's necklace, an item that has already hard-carried him through countless game overs. He slides the gauntlets on. Instantly, they mutate in color, radiating raw violet aura as pure adrenaline floods his veins. Crackling orbs of raw magic spark in his palms. The power scales insanely fast, 0.5, hitting 0.7, until he literally shatters the orb in his fist, blasting out a blinding shockwave. In one fluid motion, our guy totally obliterates a slime, feeling confident this grind can become his new daily warm-up. But then, the necklace flares up out of nowhere, forcing him to look down. Mirasol's necklace just hit the next tier. He jumps back into the fray. But something is off. Every single kill is now taking a whole second longer to execute. And then the math clicks. The artifact leveled up, which means the mobs it spawns just got a massive buff right along with it. Reading the room, Evan knows carrying better items will not cut it anymore. He needs a lethal built-in skill. Accepting this reality, he summons Maybell. She pops in confused, but he doesn't miss a beat. He orders her to brew a cup of tea, spiked with a lethal dose of poison. She serves it up without flinching. Staring down the deadly cup, he mentally checks off the first prerequisite, which he already crushed thanks to months of agonizing toxin, immunity grinding. He downs the venom like a shot, feeling it burn through his system, and locks in. It is time to master Devil's Attack, the most feared absolute game-ending ultimate move from Demon War. An instant kill exploit that violently targets vital organs. Everyone treats it like a basic finisher, but his veteran brain knows the real meta. If you trigger the exact ridiculous setup, you can one-shot a boss from full HP. Unlocking it though, basically the hardest flex in the universe. Running the numbers, he tallies his checklist. Mass level gap check. Unarmed combat check. Since these cursed leather gauntlets technically do not count as a weapon. Target at max HP, check courtesy of the upgraded necklace. The ultimate bottleneck is the final rule 0 aggro. He has to jump scare the slime, landing the critical blow. The exact millisecond it spawns. Oh, and he has to be heavily nerfed with a debuff boom. The poison tea handles that. But the actual mechanics. A total nightmare. You cannot just mash a gamepad here. He has to perfectly sync his physical muscles. The summoning, timing, and the kill shot purely on muscle memory. Sweating it out, he repeatedly hypes himself up. Failure is literally not an option. A few days later, Maybell hits up Bernard for a heavy-duty muscle relaxer. The veteran alchemist happily brews it up, proving this pharmacy is fully stocked. But he raises an eyebrow. Why on earth does the young master need something so intense? Stress practically rolls off her as she admits Evan has been totally starving himself and skipping sleep. He is grinding non-stop for some mystery goal. Bernard points out the kid has been screaming his lungs out around the clock. Maybell genuinely fears he might snap if this keeps up. Cut to the hallway, everyone is frantically pounding on his door and yelling his name, begging him to come out and prove he is still breathing. Behind that locked door, Evan just face plants into the floor, absolutely gasping for air. Rewind a few days back, Maybell hands him a bottle and a pill, totally confused about his obsession with kicking. Evan nods, validating her suspicion. He breaks it down. Devil's Attack is an insane combo where you cancel a basic strike right into a devastating finisher, using a cancel technique just like Shine does with his twin daggers. The real headache is figuring out the exact attack sequence. For now, he claims kicking is top tier since he desperately needs both hands completely free to slaughter slimes. Toss in the flawless timing required for slime summoning, and the difficulty just skyrockets. Evan even confesses that physically pulling off these insane moves is 1,000,000 times harder than just mashing keys on a keyboard. Maybell straight up admits his gamer talk sounds like absolute gibberish, but she roots for him anyway. He shoots her a grateful smile and vows to crush it, though he shoos her back to work when she volunteers to spectate. Snapping back to the present, anxious voices echo from the hallway, pleading with him to just show his face. Our protagonist clenches his teeth, refusing to back down now. He makes a blood oath to master Devil's Attack before he turns 10. There is zero chance he is dying as some disposable extra in this twisted game world. Evan lets out a gut-wrenching scream of pure effort, while Shine violently slams his hands onto the desk, declaring he is totally done sitting around. He honestly has no clue how overpowered this Devil's Attack is supposed to be, but he is terrified the young master is going to seriously wreck himself. Belois, barely blinking, drops a reality check, coolly assuring him that if Evan truly needs this power, he will absolutely pull it off alone. Meanwhile, Maybell sprints down the corridor juggling a crate of potions. She freezes dead in her tracks outside his room. The chaotic noise has completely flatlined. She bangs on the wood in total panic, drawing Redine and the Marquis, who sprint over, yelling his name like crazy. The Marquis barks for the master key, but Maybell nervously explains the room is magically sealed. Only Evan can pop the lock from the inside. Redine suddenly remembers what today actually is asking through the wood if he finally achieved his goal and gently reminding him of the date. Finally, heavy footsteps echo from the other side. The door swings wide and Evan steps into the light. Redine immediately lunges forward with wide open arms, showering him with massive 10th birthday wishes, while the whole servant crew watches in awe. Shine and Belois practically shout in pure shock, and Eric sprints over to double-check if the kid is actually breathing. Taking a beat, Evan flashes a reassuring smile, promising he is totally fine and staying that way. He then pivots to the Marquis, boldly demanding a specific vault artifact for his birthday haul. claiming it as his rightful bonus for making the pharmacy a massive hit. The camera cuts to a sleek little facility, marking phase 2 of his master plan, where a gorgeous pair of crystal-like earrings rests in a display case. Fast forward, and an older instructor is absolutely losing his mind with joy, hyping up Evan for being such a ridiculously fast learner. But our boy secretly sweats, admitting this stuff is brutal, even with his past life memories as Yo Ban-min. He thinks about those cliché isekai tropes where the reincarnated main character is a total genius, but for him, even basic lessons feel like pulling teeth. Under the tutor's strict guidance, he completely memorizes massive noble family trees, sketchy foreign relations, and the toxic web of aristocratic drama, fully aware that slipping up here is a fast track to triggering a massive death flag. Flashbacks of Demon War 3 hit him with a million brutal ways to die, mostly thanks to these shady foreign royals. He actually considers slashing his own gorgeous face to avoid attention, though Maybell aggressively shuts down that idea. Shine questions if he seriously just wants those basic earrings, but Evan forcefully defends his top-tier loot choice. Actually super grateful for his wealthy family, he secures the Snow Mountain Spirit earrings, a crazy rare artifact that turbocharges mana regeneration, getting fully strapped for the absolute chaos coming in the next stage. As training arcs drag on for agonizing hours, Shine casually drops that the kid is finally old enough to wield actual steel. Evan counters that he just has not found a weapon that vibes with his style yet. Plus, he absolutely cannot ditch his gloves right now, leaving one hand completely nerfed for combat. Belois hits him with facts. Raw power is the only way you survive a dungeon crawl, but he claps back, arguing that a high-ranking noble needs to min-max for utility over brute force. For the time being, he locks in on pure hand-to-hand brawling until the perfect weapon drops. He has a gut feeling he is meant for a totally unorthodox build, and promises to test drive every single fighting style he finds, setting a hard deadline of 2 years to figure it out. Meanwhile, stalking from the shadows, Knight Captain Mikhail D. Arok of the Sheridan Marquis bloodline keeps a hawk eye on the training grounds. This guy is the legendary shot caller of the Iron Wall Knights, sworn to defend this territory with his life. Evan steps up, sweating bullets. In the original game, this captain was barely a blip on the radar, but standing right in front of him, the dude radiates pure boss-level intimidation. Then the tragic lore hits him. Michael is destined to get wiped out, defending the Marquis estate when the Demon King's 4 divas crash the party. And the absolute worst part, that massive disaster drags our boy Evan right down into the grave, alongside the fallen noble house. Cut to the training grounds. Our main guy rolls up for some basic combat prep, only to get completely blindsided when the captain drops a bombshell. He is stepping into the ring too. Evan stares blankly, his brain totally malfunctioning right up until Michael literally rips his shirt off and casually announces he is taking over Evan's personal combat boot camp. He actually hypes the kid up for prioritizing the daily grind over absolutely everything else, openly admitting he never expected this kind of hustle from him. Cue the absolute panic as our protagonist scrambles to backpedal, screaming that there has been a massive mix-up. But the veteran knight isn't hearing it, flexing that he is the top-tier instructor in the city, maybe even the entire nation, totally locking in on his decision. When Evan tries to dodge by bringing up the captain's crazy schedule, Michael instantly shuts it down, declaring his new protege is top priority. He drops a menacing smirk, suggesting they kick things off with the basics, practically stalking forward, while our poor main character desperately moonwalks away. Flash forward 1 month, Evan collapses under a shady tree, totally gassed out right as Shine drops by. Beloa glides over with a towel to gently dab away Evan's sweat, which he takes like an absolute lifesaver. Shine grumbles in the background, desperately wishing for that kind of VIP treatment, but all eyes are glued to Evan. Right on cue, Michael crashes the chill session, announcing he is going off the grid tomorrow to wipe out some dungeons before a massive monster surge hits, leaving Evan with strict orders to solo grind. Our boy instantly remembers that this seasoned knight notoriously dodged dungeon diving, but Michael confesses that watching Evan's insane glow-up literally guilt-tripped him into stepping up. Even as an older veteran, he is craving that next level of power. The kid gives him a massive thumbs up, pointing out that beefing up his stats helps him master new skills, while keeping the Marquis bloodline safe from catching strays. They get deep into tactics, with the captain breaking down trap evasion, routing, and monster slaying. Evan tilts his head, wondering aloud if all that chaos is not just another flavor of pure hard work. The veteran shakes his head, arguing that farming experience underground hits entirely differently. But our young lord taps his chest, dropping some profound wisdom. Surviving those dark depths is literally just the universe paying out dividends for the hustle. He draws a straight line between pumping iron and risking it all in the abyss, proving that banking those levels is the ultimate jackpot. Evan boldly claims the timeline is irrelevant because the man upstairs balances the scales and drops blessings with perfect accuracy. In his eyes, breaking a sweat in the yard or bleeding in a dungeon are exactly the same vibe. You always loot what you earn. He wraps up his absolute masterclass, saying God-tier dungeon runs guarantee God-tier payouts, locking eyes with the captain for approval. Michael is left completely speechless, groaning over how dumb he was for ghosting dungeons, finally trusting this magical reward system since it is delivered straight from the heavens. Before bouncing, the commander vows to pay Evan back for the epic advice, prompting the exhausted kid to beg for a softer training regimen. Big mistake. Michael instantly swears on his life to unleash every brutal teaching method in his arsenal the second he returns. Evan dies inside, realizing his grand plan totally backfired. Catching the hype, the knight commands his squad to absolutely blitz those dungeons and crank their own training up to level 100. His buddy catches the fever, hyping up the crew by shouting, "They cannot just be benchwarmers anymore." Shine immediately jumps on the bandwagon, promising to push his own limits to the absolute max. Now our boy is drowning in slime farming, endless lectures, and brutal sparring matches. Fast forward a few days to a chill Friday afternoon. Evan meets up with the merchant boss right after the commander heads out for his dungeon raid. The bald tycoon flashes a smirk and reveals he smuggled in the specific kids they talked about last time. The boy steps up, claiming the name Paul, while the girl quietly requests to go by Mary. Our hero's brain starts spinning heavily, suspecting these are just placeholder aliases, before their canon lore drops in the main storyline. He shoots Maybelle a look, ordering her to get them cleaned up and settled into their quarters. She nods, but Evan immediately catches her suspicious glare and shuts down any weird assumptions with zero hesitation. To clear the air, he straight up reveals that Paul and Mary are demi-humans, throwing a solid nod to the merchant, and labeling this whole operation a massive, long-term investment. Switching gears, the traitor slides over a stack of heavily redacted intel Evan asked for. He has been hunting for breadcrumbs regarding the heavy hitters of Demon War 3, quickly realizing this is going to be way harder than tracking down Bernard. He knows full well that 90% of the cast is practically off the grid right now, and even the real name, or origin story of the sequel's main protagonist is a total ghost town. But he refuses to fold, locking in on his mission no matter what. When Shine raises an eyebrow, asking if playing detective is really enough, Evan casually shrugs it off as a win. He casually mentions he will recruit the rest of the crew whenever they finally spawn into the world. Scanning the hit list of future legends and doubling down on his vow to back the resistance against the villains trying to nuke the server, Shine cannot help but ask if Evan is planning to grab a sword and carry the front line. But Evan practically laughs out loud, shaking his head hard. He proudly declares he is literally just a background extra who plans to play the ultimate sponsor by flooding the heroes with top-tier loot and massive funding from the VIP section, keeping miles away from the actual bloodbath. Right in the middle of his flex, Belois shatters the mood coldly, announcing it is time to hit the books. Evan screams out loud, totally realizing he ghosted his schedule. Cut to the cranky old alchemist yelling his name. Evan is just chilling, scooping up his shaved ice, when Bernard breaks the silence, wondering if the pharmacy has hit some kind of rough patch. Ever since the summer heat kicked in, our guy just blinks totally lost and tells the old man to spill the details. Turns out Bernard is stressing over the staff uniforms. Sweating bullets in winter gear during a heat wave, he feels awful watching the crew roast alive out there. He rants about how they desperately need a wardrobe update, sneaking in a massive flex about still being the absolute best alchemist on the entire continent. Evan is not letting that slide. He shoots back that Bernard cannot just dump all the pharmacy work on him forever and actually needs to put those legendary skills to use. Right on cue, Hannah drops by with a fresh bowl of shaved ice, and Evan immediately grills her about whether her outfit is turning into a sauna. She brushes it off, but he sees straight through it. Apologizing for being so blind to the blazing heat, he swears to order a breezy summer line the second he gets back to the estate. Her eyes light up with gratitude while he makes sure she knows that his and Mabel's doors are always wide open for whatever she needs. Watching this whole exchange hits Bernard right in the feels. Deeply touched by how Evan treats the crew, he vows to pay him back for being such a solid boss. Our boy raises an eyebrow, asking if the old man is actually being dead serious. The veteran alchemist drops his guard, confessing that while his brain is a literal encyclopedia, his fading mana and aging body simply cannot keep up anymore. But there is a massive loophole. If Evan absorbs his teachings directly, they can fix that imbalance. After all, alchemy is an open book for anyone willing to grind. So Bernard commands him to show up for 1 solid hour daily. He tells the kid to grab his own textbooks and warns him not to catch any attitudes about the homework. Cut to the dead of night. Inside a massive, shadowy cathedral, a nervous nun tracks down the bishop, asking if the explosive success of Brothers Pharmacy is on his radar. The bishop absolutely loses his mind. His face contorts into pure rage as he violently slams his fist down, spitting curses at the shop for tanking their precious donation money. Blinded by greed, he accuses them of dragging God's name through the mud with cheap parlor tricks, swearing on his life that he will crush them for the disrespect. Fast forward to the end of a grueling study session. Hannah pokes her head through the doorway to check on Evan, only to find our guy completely zeroed out, face-planting into the floorboards. Bernard just smirks down at his exhausted student, casually dropping that, if his schedule was clear, he would be torturing him with lessons from dawn till dusk. Groaning, the protagonist fires back that he will be an old man in 50 years at this speed, before scrambling to his feet and sprinting out to handle some urgent business. Left alone, Bernard quietly realizes something insane. This kid could completely eclipse his lifelong legacy in a mere 5 years. Not only is his power leveling up exponentially, but the boy is basically becoming a master himself. Still, the old man wonders if throwing potion brewing into the mix is pushing it. Out in the hall, Hannah mentions she has some free time because foot traffic took a massive nosedive. The culprit, the local temple, throwing a giant free blessing marathon for the past few days. Meanwhile, back at the corrupt church, the nun delivers the update. The pharmacy's numbers are bleeding out and the bishop just flashes an incredibly toxic, self-satisfied grin. She tries to talk some sense into him, warning that this petty stunt will backfire, but he completely waves her off, claiming morality has zero place in this chess match. Homeboy goes on an absolute tear about the nosediving profits since the shop launched, pointing his finger straight at the noble count's bloodline for stealing their entire demographic of locals and dungeon crawlers. He wraps his greedy tantrum in a fake holy mission to restore the goddess's ultimate power. He is stubbornly doubling down. The nun desperately warns him that messing with a business protected by a literal count could trigger an all-out political war. But the bishop just scoffs, planning a cowardly loophole to ruin the shop without laying a finger on the nobles themselves. She begs him to spare the innocent staff getting caught in the crossfire. His cold response, he completely dismisses her, acting like sparing their lives is generous enough. Pushed to her absolute breaking point, she screams that she is totally done with his garbage. Cut to later that night, our runaway nun is drowning her sorrows at a dusty tavern, loudly venting to her glass about the bishop, using divine authority as a cheap smokescreen to hoard fat stacks of cash. She bitterly complains that the blessing campaign is a complete scam, while she and the lower priests are the ones breaking their backs doing the actual heavy lifting. Out of nowhere, our boy slides into the scene, eyeing her massive pile of meat skewers and offering to foot the bill. She nearly chokes on her drink when he drops her full title, Priestess Servina Beline. Panicked but too hammered to care, she chugs more booze and loudly roasts the bishop. Slurring her words, Servina trashes the entire corrupt priesthood, heavily debating if she should just toss her holy robes in the trash and go work freelance under the count's banner. Evan locks eyes with her and casually drops a bomb. He offers her an exclusive spot on his personal roster, backing it up with a promise of infinite funding. Caught off guard, Servina admits the offer sounds like an absolute dream, but shakes her head. When he pushes for a reason, she spills the truth. She swore a personal oath to cleanse the rotting temple from the inside out. Evan hits her with a harsh reality check, brutally pointing out that the system is way beyond her saving. Defeated, she nods, confessing that she is already on thin ice and practically one step away from getting forcefully kicked out of the church anyway. It suddenly clicks for Evan. She is already an outcast from the main branch. He could easily just sit back and watch her crash and burn. But then he remembers how he totally flipped the script on Shine and Bella's tragic destinies. Why not give this rogue priestess the exact same glow-up? Getting her attention, he drops some heavy wisdom. If she does not have the firepower to tear down the system solo, why not borrow the strength of a heavy hitter? Blinking through her buzz, she asks him to translate that out of cryptic protagonist speak. He smirks, suggesting they sit down and dissect the real root of her problems and figure out the exact strategy to completely demolish it. The scene shifts. Evan is now standing shoulder to shoulder with Dane, facing their entire crew. He delivers a chilling warning about an incoming sneak attack, but immediately hypes them up, guaranteeing absolute protection. He loudly reminds the squad that, look, if you are invited into their turf, your safety is completely on the host. Dane makes it crystal clear, every single crew member at Brothers Pharmacy carries the heavy weight of the Marquis family name. You mess with them, you declare a full-blown war on the entire bloodline. One of the staff pipes up, genuinely baffled about who would actually be crazy enough to pull a stunt like that. Evan does not even miss a beat. He flat out names the Bishop of the Order of the Great as the mastermind actively plotting to sabotage their operation. The crew is totally shook. Is this holy man completely unhinged for crossing a marquee? But then it clicks. That massive noble influence is exactly why there is a giant target painted on their backs. Someone finally connects the dots. Those sudden free blessings being handed out at the temple. Total sabotage designed purely to choke out their cash flow. But our boy just brushes it off like it is nothing. Motive does not even matter anymore because he has already cooked up the ultimate counterattack. Stepping up to the plate, Bernard spills the reality of their inventory. The rookie trainees have been grinding, brewing up a storm using leftover scraps. The massive catch. They are absolute trash by his master tier standards. Definitely not premium enough to ever hit the market shelves. Instead of dumping them, he pitches a massive charity drop for the poorest districts. He swears on his pride to personally quality check every single vial to ensure nobody gets poisoned. Fail his strict inspection, and you are banished from touching any medicinal herbs for a long time. Surprisingly, the squad absolutely hypes up the brutal challenge. The master alchemist quickly kills the competitive vibe though. He firmly states it is not a contest, and this little giveaway only lasts until their scrap stash completely dries up. Pivoting back to the actual danger, Evan drops a heavy truth. Rolling out into the exposed slums, hands the temple a golden opportunity to violently ambush them in the open. Bernard smirks, realizing they can flip this into the perfect bait to expose the church. Our guy totally agrees, emphasizing they need airtight evidence so the temple cannot gaslight their way out of the fallout. Boom, he slaps down a stack of rolled-up intel. Leaked documents from a nameless shadow source exposing the temple's dirty laundry. It literally includes the hit list of corrupt knights scheduled for the raid. His orders are cutthroat, keep your eyes glued to them, and bag them breathing. He tasks Dane with circulating the blacklist among their own forces, before officially greenlighting the high-stakes operation. Fast forward, and Evan is playing the public relations game beautifully. He publicly hypes up both the church's blessings and their own freebie potions, sarcastically joking that Shirton is basically a utopia right now. Down in the gritty slums, a pharmacy rep is screaming at the top of his lungs, hyping up the $0 elixirs, and organizing a massive, desperate crowd. Locals are chugging the brews left and right, even carefully splitting the precious doses with the neighborhood kids. Dane is genuinely stunned by the sheer volume of the stockpile. The rookies brewed so much during practice that they could literally flood the entire district with healing. An elderly woman practically weeps in sheer gratitude, praising the young boss as her chronic chest pains vanish like absolute magic. Strolling through the chaos, Dane points out Evan's insane main character charisma. Going out of his way for the bottom tier naturally turns him into a massive magnet for undying loyalty. The knight confidently predicts smooth sailing from here, but seconds later, his earpiece crackles to life. Panic on the other end, a burglar just got busted, trying to breach one of their clinics. Security has the guy pinned down, but the frantic dispatch warns this might just be a distraction, with other locations likely getting breached too. Dane catches the emergency dispatch to hustle. He locks in, realizing the enemy syndicate has officially pulled the trigger on their ambush. Breaking down the enemy strategy, Evan points out a brutal reality. Bodies hold way more leverage than buildings. He predicts the assassins are gunning straight for their crew. He calmly asks if Dane's lethal instincts are picking up any weird vibes. Before the knight can even open his mouth, his blade is drawn in a blinding silver flash. They whip around instantly. A cloaked phantom materializes from the shadows, eyes locked dead onto their prey. Evan's gamer brain instantly clocks him. It is Fanto the Shadow Thief, a notorious early game boss carried hard by his overpowered stealth gear, the Shadow Cape. Dane barks a lethal warning. Completely unfazed, Fanto casually states he is just clearing a quest log. His singular mission is to wipe out anyone handing out free meds in the gutter. The rogue smirks, claiming noble bloodlines mean absolutely zero to him. If Evan catches a blade today, it is purely terrible luck. Fury spikes in the knight's eyes, but our boy is playing chess. He remembers the lore Bishop Seteron only unleashes Fanto when he needs a target permanently deleted from existence. He totally anticipated a dirty play, hence the lockdown on his staff. But staring death in the face, the terrifying reality hits. They are not here for vandalism, they are here for blood. With a legendary killer actively blocking their path, the tutorial phase is officially over. Evan casually admits he never thought Seteron would actually burn his best card by sending Fanto. The assassin violently flinches, absolutely shook that his identity got leaked. Sizing up the deadly ambush, Evan asks his bodyguard if he can solo this. Squinting into the shadows, Dane drops his pride and confesses that fighting a ghost is going to be incredibly tough. The knight vows to become a human shield until backup drops in, but our boy refuses to let a loyal vassal get packed up on his watch. He violently orders Dane to shut his eyes tight. Sprinting straight into the danger zone, Evan spikes something onto the cobblestone that violently erupts into a blinding flash. He instantly screams for the strike. Dane's aura flares, his heavy blade ripping a brutal arc right across the rogue's chest, dropping Fanto into the dirt. Dane pauses, debating if they should violently interrogate the bleeding assassin. Evan waves it off completely, knowing these high-tier mercenaries never talk anyway. Zero time to breathe. A massive bald brute suddenly bulldozes out of nowhere, dagger gleaming. Dane roars, a desperate warning, but Evan fluidly sidesteps the lethal thrust. He violently snatches the giant's wrist and buries a devastating punch straight into his gut. Dane tries to step in and lecture him about safety, but Evan just ignores the fuss completely. Dusting off his hands, he declares the trash officially taken out. Now his brain shifts into overdrive, plotting exactly how the Marquis dynasty is going to utterly destroy the fools who dared to test them. Cut to the Grand Estate. The head butler delivers the grim report. The captured thug is playing dumb, stubbornly repeating that Evan just looked like a loaded wallet waiting to be snatched. Pinning this hit directly on Bishop Seteron is mathematically impossible right now. The corrupt holy man scrubbed his footprints like an absolute ghost. The holy knights spin a pathetic excuse, claiming they went rogue because the temple cash flow totally dried up. They swear up and down they had zero clue the Sheridan heir was on site. The Marquis scoffs, realizing everyone is seriously sleeping on his family power. The butler brands the bishop a complete lunatic. He pitches slapping the order with a formal complaint to permanently shut down this nonsense. Evan's dad instantly vetoes the idea. If the order actually respected the Sheridan name, they wouldn't have dared to pull a stunt this reckless. It is time to stop playing nice. He decides to unleash the raw, terrifying might of their bloodline. But the butler drops a bombshell. The young master already secured a lethal weapon to nuke the order. With just 4 days on the clock, Evan pulls his dad aside. He promises that before the week ends, they will hold the exact ammunition needed to utterly obliterate the bishop. The Marquis raises an eyebrow, asking if this involves his secret mole inside the church. The young mastermind just smirks and nods. Evan breaks it down. Patience is key. His inside girl is about to deliver airtight proof that will bury the man alive. The bishop has been heavily skimming off the top hoarding donation money meant for the main headquarters. Evan reveals that Citeron personally greenlit the hit on Brothers Pharmacy. The blueprint is genius. Corner the order with a deal, throw the bishop under the bus, and let the Sheridan family handle the execution. In exchange, they sweep the massive embezzlement scandal under the rug to save the church reputation. The Marquis instantly spots the golden opportunity to hijack the church loyalty. Evan points out the ultimate flex. The order is backed into a corner and has literally no choice but to agree. Pondering the master plan, his dad pauses, questioning if this mystery informant could be playing them. Evan vouches for her entirely. She holds a low rank, but is insanely sharp, and after reading her vibe in person, he knows she is 100% legit. Buying into the strategy, the patriarch decides to wait for the drop. He turns to Maybelle and Beloit, giving them major props for watching over his boy, and border and officially leaves Evan in their intensely protective hands. Our guy desperately protests, begging Shine to save him. He keeps thrashing around, screaming to be freed while his dad casually walks out. Fast forward 3 days, and Serpina hands over a mountain of dirt, swearing it is all for him. Staring at the massive stack of receipts, Evan realizes this is straight up lethal. She admits she had been hoarding this intel for ages, waiting for the perfect moment to totally ruin the guy. Evan smirks, noting that dropping this on the order desk will literally wipe the bishop off the map. Serpina freezes, suddenly wondering if her info is basically a death warrant. She only ever expected to cancel his reputation. Evan shuts that guilt down fast. The second the bishop messed with his business, he signed his own grave, and because of her, a ton of innocent lives are saved. This paper trail, he explains, acts as the ultimate shield, preventing a full-blown bloodbath between the Sherdans and the Order of the Great. Citeron got way too cocky, assuming the Marquis wouldn't dare strike without hard proof. But Evan knows the original lore in Demon War 3. The Marquis single-handedly annihilates the Order. That corrupt fool seriously picked the wrong enemy. Evan tells Serpina to drop the guilt trip and leave the baggage behind. Smiling softly, she says she is just thrilled to be useful, wishing him the best and pledging her absolute loyalty. But Evan drops a twist. He does not want her switching teams to the Marquis estate. Instead, she needs to stay planted as a double agent. If he can manipulate the next Grand Bishop into power, his own survival odds skyrocket, creating a massive win for his family, the Dungeon City, and his own neck. Cut to the trial where Citeron is losing his mind, screaming that this is pure slander, and playing the victim while heavily armed guards pin him down. The Marquis coldly silences him, rolling out the massive laundry list of his crimes against the pharmacy, Evan, and the entire city. He instantly condemns the rogue holy knights to rot in a cell, and sentences Citeron to be stripped of his holy title and sent straight to the gallows. On cue, guards drag the disgraced man out, while he furiously shrieks that he is untouchable. Unfazed, the lord of the city lays down the absolute law, making it crystal clear that this is the brutal reality for anyone who messes with his turf or threatens a Sheridan. Stepping outside to face the massive crowd, he delivers a chillingly epic speech. True power, he booms, demands absolute responsibility, and must never step on the innocent. Later in the garden, Evan chills out, figuring the dust has finally settled. Brothers, pharmacy is about to blow up, especially since the new bishop is already sucking up to the Marquis. Calling it a massive win, he asks his crew if there is any leftover drama to handle. Shine brings up a certain wild card, a former secretary for the dead bishop, who just scored a major promotion based on stellar performance. Cut back to the cathedral, Serpina Beline confidently faces the new bishop, introducing herself with a flawless smile, totally ready to run the shadows. Across town, the hype around the pharmacy is absolutely unreal. Everyone is praising it as the ultimate success story. Word on the street is that Evan himself masterminded the whole empire. Hearing this, our guy just groans, realizing his low-key life is spiraling out of control. Knowing deep down he can never fill his older brother's shoes, it hits him hard. He never expected that his sweaty, desperate hustle just to survive as a background character would put him in the spotlight. Noticing his stress, Maybelle pulls him aside, assuring him he is truly one of a kind. She sweetens the deal. If he wants no part of the patriarchy, she is totally down to back his escape plan. He doesn't need to force himself onto the throne, just because he is a certified genius. Exhausted, Evan confesses he actually planned to drop that retirement bomb when he turned 12. The first inspection wraps up, and our boy drops the absolute bombshell. He is rejecting the Marquis title entirely. He is locking in on a totally different grind, becoming a knight captain. To prove his point, Evan quizzes Mabel on exactly what it means to be high society. She nails the answer, ruling the city and defending the dungeons. Spot on. Mabel instantly reads his vibe and figures out his endgame, and he gives her a nod. His mind immediately races to the Dungeon Knights. Their whole purpose, raiding those deadly labyrinths and operating as completely rogue independent squads. Memories of his past life playing the game hit him hard. Back then, he totally fumbled the bag, forcing his older brother Eric to step up and take the heavy burden. Not this time. He vows to plunge into those dungeons himself to keep Eric safe. Plus, he suddenly remembers the trade manager promised to deliver 3 extra demi-humans to his crew. Mentally tallying up Shine Below and the rest of the gang, he realizes his squad is already 7 deep. It is time. Evan resolves to pitch this whole Dungeon Knight idea to his dad as soon as possible. When he asks for a status update, Mabel spills the tea. Shine is out there, grinding his sword skills to the bone, while Belois just vanished to do her own solo thing. Strolling down the halls, Mabel whispers that he needs to put Belois in check before the girl gets way too comfortable. Evan just brushes it off with a deadpan response. Mabel is not letting it go, though. She straight up begs to join his elite knight order, but he immediately shoots that fantasy down. Our guy has to remind her that she is already pulling massive weight as the literal face of the brothers' pharmacy empire. Mid-conversation, the vibe shifts. Servants are sprinting down the corridors in an absolute panic, prompting him to demand what is going down. A breathless maid delivers massive news. The second lady just gave birth to a baby girl. Evan completely freezes, trying to process the fact that he has a brand new little sister. Inside the room, all eyes are glued to Miriam D. Sheridan and her newborn. The usual toxic succession drama totally evaporates, and our boy quickly realizes this is a massive win for him. It buys him crucial time before dropping his Dungeon Knight revelation. Off to the side, Mabel playfully compares his complicated feelings to her own desperate urge to be his one and only exclusive maid. But Evan just sits there, an icy knot forming in his stomach despite the joyful atmosphere. He confesses that the math is not mathing. Back in the original Demon War 3 game, a Sheridan daughter literally did not exist. The family was heavily baked into the main lore, making this random baby completely suspicious. His brain goes into overdrive. Even a background sibling would have popped up in at least one cutscene. The verdict: she was absolutely never part of the original script. Did she just marry into another family and dip? Impossible. The main storyline kicks off in exactly 9 years she would still be a kid. Running through the scenarios, 2 chilling options remain. Either his butterfly effect shattered the timeline, or she was always born, but never lived long enough to see the game start. An even darker realization hits him like a truck in the original canon. Her death was probably directly linked to his own brutal demise. Seeing him spiral, Mabel desperately tries to calm him down. She swears he is still her ultimate favorite regardless of how insanely adorable the newborn is. Evan just lets out an exhausted sigh, muttering that her cuteness is literally the least of his worries right now. The little girl flashes a tiny smile. Evan flexes, claiming she is definitely smiling at him, while Eric violently disagrees, hyping up his own broad shoulders instead. Cradling the infant, Miriam shoots a heartfelt thank you to Redine for her support, though the First Lady gracefully deflects the praise right back. Watching them, Evan zeroes in on Miriam's fragile status. As the second wife going up against a first wife who already secured the bloodline with healthy sons, it clicks. Miriam had never managed to get pregnant before today. It is wild because in the game she was a straight-up menace who basically orchestrated his death. But looking at her right now, she is just a loving mom with 0 red flags. The pieces finally snap together. Her tragic villain origin story was not baked in. It was triggered by a specific trauma, and if he can spot it, he can stop it. Rerouting this timeline means he could easily prevent her from breaking bad while conveniently keeping himself breathing in the process. His mind stays locked on Miriam D. Sheridan. Was she actually a sociopath from day one like the game implied? Or did a single devastating tragedy push her into total darkness? A heavy chill runs down his spine as he realizes he knows exactly what that tragedy is. Cut to an intense sit-down with Bernard. The old veteran lays out a brutal reality check, explaining that even locked inside a fortress-like noble mansion, surrounded by elite knights and high-tier priests, a helpless newborn is not untouchable. Bernard states with grim certainty that a sudden death like that would only stem from 2 things: an untreatable disease or a lethal curse. Our protagonist mutters those exact words under his breath, before violently slamming his hands on the table. He hyperventilates, realizing baby Elizabeth is a sitting duck. The old man just maintains fierce eye contact, calmly stating that he is already aware. Bernard breaks down the tactics. Since the Marquis estate is essentially on total lockdown, looking for a traitor inside is a waste of time. The real threat is lurking outside the gates. The veteran hints that he is already connecting the dots. If his terrifying hunch actually holds up, they are not just saving Elizabeth, they are saving the entire city from a bloodbath. He lays out step 1, hit the streets and hunt down any trace of monster activity. Bernard brings up a massive dungeon outbreak that nearly wiped them out earlier this year. They barely managed to patch the leak, making this sudden threat infinitely more suspicious. Fast forward a bit, and our boy's sharp eyes lock onto something seriously messed up on the pavement. He waves the squad over, pointing dead at a nasty dark smudge. Orc droppings. Bernard nods slowly, muttering that he fully expected to find exactly this. Dane squints at it, totally skeptical. He questions if it is genuinely monster filth, throwing out the idea that maybe it accidentally got mixed into the cement during the recent city rebuilds. But Bernard shuts that down. The color is a dead giveaway. He figures the construction crew totally missed it because they were speed-running the project to beat the deadline. The knight pushes back, wondering why a little monster waste even matters. His logic: if dungeon scraps were actually that radioactive, the entire city would have crumbled ages ago, considering their best weapons and high-tier artifacts are literally forged from monster parts. Bernard is not having it. He cuts the knight off cold, dropping the harsh truth that processed loot and raw festering monster biology are two completely different beasts. Bernard drops a massive truth bomb. The real lethal threat is not just the beasts themselves, but their toxic blood and guts spilling everywhere, creating a literal breeding ground for deadly plagues. He looks at the crew and drops a chilling name: Dungeon Sickness, a brutal debuff that completely drains your HP after hanging around monster territory way too long. Normally, this only wrecks squishy humans with 0 mana or hardcore explorers diving into the abyss, but the old man does not stop there. He locks eyes with them, asking the ultimate nightmare question: what if this toxic plague broke loose in the normal world? Piling up too much monster loot in one spot basically turns that zone into a mini dungeon. And since their city just survived a massive monster stampede, the toxic aura is totally lingering in the air. Sure, the outside infection rate is weaker and burns out quicker if handled right, but it is still creeping through the streets. For an average adult, it is basically a joke, but for toddlers with base stats, it is devastating, making Dane totally panic as he echoes that terrifying thought. The expert clarifies that while this creeping rot has no direct cure, it will not instantly end you on its own. The true horror drops when a second bug hits an infected victim, comboing them straight to the grave. And thanks to that recent monster wave, this ticking time bomb is ready to explode. They are staring down the barrel of a massive pandemic, meaning their only play is to hunt down the infection using nothing but breadcrumbs. Evan instantly goes into boss mode, barking orders to alert the big shot lord immediately. The goal: put every single baby on absolute lockdown before they catch it, but right as he sprints off, Servina kicks the doors wide open, screaming his name. The old-timer squints at the newcomer, prompting our boy to vouch for her as a top-tier holy healer he trusts with his life. Panting for breath, she drops the worst news possible. The patient count just skyrocketed to insane numbers, and her clerics are totally overwhelmed. Dane breaks into a cold sweat, realizing a contagious outbreak means game over, so Evan aggressively demands to see the victims firsthand. The priestess drags them to a makeshift ward, packed with groaning bodies, where the veteran pharmacist dives into an intense medical check. His diagnosis: the virus evolved, but he can totally still brew a counter potion, ordering the hero to round up every single alchemist from the guild. Stepping up to the plate, our main character delivers a hype speech to the crew, swearing they gotta crush this plague before it hits critical mass. The lab geeks freak out, calling it an apocalyptic curse immune to divine magic, but the old man stays icy cool. He flexes his genius casually, revealing he already reverse-engineered the viral mutation and knows exactly how to craft the antidote. Evan pumps up the squad, hyping up the veteran's massive brain and telling them to just focus entirely on grinding out the meds. The room erupts into a roaring cheer as both the pharmacy squad and the Holy Order launch into a frantic, all-out crafting montage. Backed by the Lord's heavy resources, they lock down infected zones and scrub the tainted districts spotless at lightning speed. Once the dust settles, our dude gives major props to the old man, who humbly passes the credit to the insane teamwork between everyone involved. But the veteran drops a harsh reality check, reminding him that in any massive raid against a plague, 0 casualties is just a fantasy. Instead of drowning in guilt over the ones they lost, he insists they gotta look at the bigger picture. They need to flex about the thousands of lives they just carried to safety. Evan nods with grim resolve until a desperate scream shatters the moment. Mabel completely bursts through the door in hysterics, dropping the bombshell that the baby girl's health is crashing fast, sending him sprinting down the hall. He bursts into the room to find a terrified mother clutching her incredibly pale, gasping newborn, throwing his brain into complete overdrive. Panic grips him as he questions everything. Did the legendary potion glitch out and totally fail to work on her? Scooping up the fading infant, he watches her mom totally break down, absolutely convinced her little girl is doomed. But our main character straight up rejects that bad ending, whipping around to demand a backup plan from his master, who mentions a forbidden elixir. This mythic brew could permanently buff her stats to survive, but they are entirely out of the necessary ultra-rare loot. Even a top-tier veteran who survived the apocalyptic Demon War 0 through 4 barely knows the recipe. But then Evan spots her level 1 status and remembers a core game mechanic. The kill shot takes all the XP. Going full gamer mode, he spawns a low-tier slime, intending to drop its health to 1 single point so the baby can secure the kill. Pinning the squishy mob down, he literally coaches the newborn, telling her she just needs to deliver the ultimate tap. He physically guides her tiny trembling fist forward, while everyone else in the room loses their minds, begging him to stop as he pushes her to strike. Gripping the wiggling beast close, the whole squad starts hyping the baby up until she finally squashes the creature flat. The mob shatters into dust, and the sobbing mother snatches her child back, while our guy breathes a massive sigh of relief that the crazy strat actually worked. His parents are absolutely floored by the miracle survival, while the lord of the house starts hollering for the medical team to double check. The whole room realizes our boy just pulled off a literal miracle, pulling him into a massive group hug, while the old expert gives him an approving head pat. The veteran drops some heavy respect, admitting that forcing a baby to farm XP was absolutely unhinged, but totally brilliant. Mabel practically tackles him with happy tears, but inside his head, the terrifying lore of the Velfen pandemic flashes before his eyes. Recalling that apocalyptic event from his past gaming days, he gets massive chills, wondering how the original timeline survived without this insane intervention. He catches himself zoning out, realizing a terrifying truth: if it weren't for his grandpa and the absolute miracle cures from Brothers Pharmacy, their entire world would literally be in ruins right now. But Bernard isn't letting him spiral. The old man just keeps perfectly swirling neon liquids in his flasks, casually dropping some heavy wisdom, telling our guy to stop overthinking and just use his massive brain to save lives. And honestly, he keeps it super real, adding that if giving his absolute everything still falls short, walking away is totally valid. Because let's face it, a world where nobody even tries to step up, yeah, that place is basically doomed anyway. Cut to the grand estate later, where our dude is awkwardly balancing baby Liz in his arms. Big bro Eric is instantly waving and shouting for their attention. Evan smirks, totally flexing that the baby obviously favors him, which just prompts Eric to say bet and tackle them both into a massive group hug. But our boy is having none of it, ruthlessly stiff-arming his older brother, while keeping Liz perfectly safe. The Marquis just watches this pure chaos unfold before waving his youngest over. His dad drops a major reality check, pointing out that keeping this little girl alive practically rescued the entire city and honestly the whole nation. When pushed on whether he's saying this just to hype up Eric, things get intense. Evan locks onto his dad's gaze. No hesitation, no stuttering. He straight up announces he is going to command the Dungeon Knights as their captain. Look, Eric D. Sheridan has been grinding non-stop in the training yard. Our MC already figured his dad peeped the older brother's insane work ethic, making this the exact right moment to drop his own bombshell. So he lays it all out. He wants the top spot running the Dungeon Knights. The Marquis, he barely even blinks. Totally reading the room and realizing this is tied to Eric's grind, the old man nods. He promises to throw the family's entire vault of resources behind his son and the squad. There is just one massive catch. Evan cannot officially claim the title until he hits adulthood. Our boy groans but takes the deal. His dad hits him with that CEO mindset, ordering him to start laying the groundwork literally right now, building the base and recruiting the absolute beasts he will command. Evan bows his head in thanks. But the Marquis goes cold for a second, warning him that if the whole operation isn't flawless by age 18, the offer gets shredded. Challenge accepted. With a 7-year countdown officially ticking, our guy just flashes this knowing smirk, bragging that he already has the perfect crew name locked and loaded. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the pharmacy squad is literally throwing a party after surviving their brutal shift. They are beyond ready to scrub the scent of medicinal plants off their skin, with some ice-cold drinks rolling out as a massive group. But a few absolute legends stay locked in. Why? Because they are the only ones holding the secret recipe for the nation's lifeline. Catching the vibe, Evan slides up to Bernard, visibly stressing about the future. He points out that just because they flatlined one plague, people are going to get sloppy and complacent. He demands they upgrade their whole system to strike way faster when the next disaster hits. The veteran alchemist just shrugs, claiming the daily grind will naturally level up their speed. Plus, he drops a massive reality pill. Surviving this outbreak practically turned Brothers Pharmacy into a household name, which means the royal family is definitely about to realize these potion makers are infinitely more valuable than those useless holy priests. You can practically see the gears turning in our protagonist's head, as Bernard casually predicts the crown is going to slide into the Marquis' DMs for a royal summit real soon. The math is obvious. The king is totally going to demand they franchise this miracle pharmacy nationwide. Bernard points out that dropping a flagship store right in the royal capital is the most logical play. But there is a huge risk the ruler might try to forcefully uproot their main headquarters. Instead, a total red line that Evan's dad would absolutely go to war over. Right on cue, his dad corners him, announcing they are packing their bags for the capital because the king officially called them in. Evan instantly tries to dodge, complaining about royal manners, and begging him to drag Eric along instead. But the Marquis is not taking no for an answer. Honestly, our boy was originally plotting to hit up the royal city way down the timeline. However, his gamer brain quickly realizes this early trip is a golden ticket to speedrun looting all the hidden artifacts and secret lore from Demon Wars 3 and 4, or maybe even 2 and 1. Cut to the luxury carriage ride, where he is chilling with his loyal duo Shine and Bellois, plus his dad. Fast forward 2 grueling weeks on the road, and they finally pull up to a massive mansion. Scanning the area, Evan's past life knowledge kicks in. He remembers that Count Byron's entire bloodline is destined to be completely wiped off the map right before Demon War 3 even pops off, so he immediately flags them as walking disasters and mentally vows to stay away. A random guy nearby freaks out asking if trash-talking like that might mess with the Marquis' political moves, but Evan's dad just brushes it off. He drops absolute giga-chad energy, stating a father should always back his kid's instincts. And hey, even if the boy is dead wrong, their family empire is way too massive to fall. Just as he drops that flex, a terrified servant bursts into the room. Palace guards just rolled up, demanding they head straight to the throne room by the emperor's direct orders. Both father and son completely freeze. This is wild, because usually high-ranking nobles get a grace period to settle in before facing the crown. Stepping into the throne room, they drop into their formal bows, but the emperor just waves his hand entirely, tossing out the stiff royal protocols and keeping the vibe surprisingly casual. The ruler smirks, noting how the Marquis hasn't changed a bit since the old days. The nobleman smoothly fires back the exact same compliment without missing a beat. Then, the big boss shifts his gaze, asking if this tiny kid is the legendary genius of the Sheridan bloodline. Catching his cue, Evan steps up, drops his full title, and spits out some perfectly rehearsed lines about how breathtaking it is to meet the ruler. He lays the flattery on thick. The emperor just chuckles, pointing out that the apple clearly hasn't fallen far from the tree, which coming from him is basically a god-tier compliment. The Marquis dips his head in thanks, but their royal host is already over the small talk, abruptly steering the conversation straight to business. Dishing out some heavy praise for our boy's massive brain plays with the medicine, the emperor acts like he is doing them a favor. He pitches the idea of dropping a brand new pharmacy branch right in the heart of the capital. This instantly triggers the Marquis' trap card, and he dives straight into aggressive expansion talks, hinting at setting up franchises all across the map. To sweeten the pot, the emperor promises absolute royal immunity, swearing to crush any pushback from the shady Order of the Great. But as the tension spikes in the room, the real hidden agenda comes out. The crown demands full monopoly control over shipping the raw magical herbs. He claims it is just to protect their supply chains from haters. He frames it as the only way to safely expand into his city. But the Marquis goes on the offensive, hard countering that his solo success in nuking the pandemic is absolute proof that the capital desperately needs a Sheridan-run operation on their own terms. The standoff is intense. Nobody is blinking. Seeing his dad cornered, our protagonist mentally gears up to jump into the verbal crossfire. But before he can even open his mouth, the emperor locks eyes with him. He gives this weirdly chill sigh, confessing he was just way too hyped to meet the kid in the flesh. And then, out of nowhere, he casually points toward the royal gardens and literally tells our boy to go touch some grass and play. Both Evan and his dad are left absolutely shell-shocked by the sudden dismissal. Evan tries to politely decline, but before he can even get the words out, the emperor spots someone lurking. Next thing you know, he's barking orders to have the Sheridan family's second son escorted straight to the royal gardens. Heavily armored guards close in, and Evan's stomach drops. He totally missed his window to back up his dad. A guard gestures toward the path, and Evan immediately pivots to his ultimate survival strat, grinding that slime training, so he asks for some solo sightseeing time. The guard surprisingly buys it. Strolling through the lush greenery, a vibrant pulsing blue aura bleeds from his fingertips as he surges with an insane amount of pure mana. Grinding alchemy hasn't just boosted his stats, it literally rewired his physical limits. The catch: he has zero actual combat skills to flex this wild power, unless you count brewing potions as a lethal weapon. But hey, infinite mana unlocked. Now, he hyper-focuses on hacking his summons, picturing a massive, jiggly slime compressing down into a bite-sized version. The logic is flawless. Micro-slimes mean he can spawn 4 to 5 at a time. Wiping out a whole mob would literally double his EXP farming rate. Slime grinding is basically an overpowered cheat code, but mid-grind, a random voice cuts through the silence, asking what on earth he's up to. Evan practically jumps out of his skin, snapping his head around to demand who's spying. Boom. He makes dead eye contact with a pink-haired girl, just chilling there, casually gripping a squirming earthworm. She closes the distance deadpan, offering him a turn to pet the slimy thing. Evan immediately hits her with a hard pass. Unbothered, she starts orbiting him like a curious predator, inspecting her prey, leaning in uncomfortably close to whisper that he's honestly just as pretty as her bug. Evan deadpans back that nobody has ever dropped that specific compliment on him before. She doubles down, defending her precious worm's aesthetic, which prompts him to flat-out label her a total weirdo. But then, a massive realization hits him like a truck. He runs through the lore of the Demon War game, filtering for chaotic pink-haired NPCs, and nervously asks if she's Serena. Bingo. She drops her full title, Serena L. Silkline, the Emperor's youngest daughter, and the walking disaster behind a massive main questline in Demon War 4. Suddenly, the Emperor's weird hint, nudging him toward this exact garden, makes perfect, terrifying sense. Serena flexes that she's 10 years old and immediately demands his age. Our guy introduces himself as Evan D. Sheridan, clocking in at 11 and claiming the title of the youngest in his noble house. She notes the age gap, then drops his name, locking him down with this crazy piercing stare, Without skipping a beat, she interrogates him about the tiny buddies crushed in his grip, demanding to know why he's straight up executing them in her royal backyard. Serena's gaze is heavy. She drops a bombshell. Those little jelly blobs were literally crying out for him to save them. Then she steps up, demanding why he's bullying innocent creatures. Evan is totally thrown, asking what she means by saving them. She shrugs it off with zero chill, stating the voices stopped, so she guesses he wiped them all out. Alarm bells start ringing in our boy's head. He digs into his meta-knowledge, remembering how the princess got snatched by demons back in Demon War 4. In the original timeline, she was brainwashed into ruling top-tier boss monsters. A terrifying thought drops. Is this her hidden, overpowered ability? She's been sheltered in the safe zone of the palace her entire life. She literally had zero clue she was a natural-born beast tamer. Denying his own magic is completely off the table. Homegirl already caught him in 4K, spawning them. Evan drops the mask and spits pure facts. It's all about survival. He has to grind, kills to level up, and getting insanely buff is his only ticket to staying alive in this nightmare world. To prove his point, he spawns another slime and insta-pops it. Serena, entirely unfazed, flatly states he's not allowed to die. Confused, he pauses, and she casually begs him to just spare a single mob. After double-checking exactly which one she wants saved, Evan feels his Mirasol artifact heat up, radiating a strange energy. She guarantees the creature won't aggro if he lets it loose. But Evan isn't taking any chances. He immediately insists they tactical retreat to the fountain for backup safety. She nods along, and the duo ditches the crime scene. Posted up by the water, our protagonist dumps pure mana directly into the artifact, triggering a bright flash that spawns a tiny, fiercely glowing fire slime. Serena is absolutely starstruck by this rare elemental variant. He hands the fiery blob over, straight up admitting he can't tame the thing. She snatches it up like a shiny toy, cooing over how adorable it is. He hits her with a massive hazard warning, but she brushes off the danger flags like they're nothing. While the burning jelly wiggles in her palm, she asks if it's seriously a pacifist. Watching this insane interaction, Evan mutters that his EXP farming routine would be a total nightmare if every single mob acted this chill. Serena drops some deep monster lore explaining that most mobs are completely brainless. They run purely on violent instincts, swinging at anything that moves, meaning his guilt-free grinding is totally valid. Shook by her sudden wisdom, he asks who dropped that massive lore bomb on her. Without blinking, she credits the fiery blob, casually revealing she already named it Ruby. She flexes that she's literally reading its mind, proving they just casually forged a tamer's contract. Evan breaks down the mechanics. If she grinds affinity by hanging out with it, it'll eventually level up into her personal bodyguard. Her mind instantly jumps to her favorite bug, asking if she can buff a worm the same way. Evan brutally shuts it down. Taming mechanics only apply to actual monsters. Taking the loss on her bug dreams, she cuddles Ruby close to her chest. As they chill back in the garden, Evan volunteers to break down the exact stats and limits of her newfound tamer skill, but she completely derails the convo obsessively, asking one more time if she can contract a literal earthworm. Evan is left totally speechless, the awkward silence dragging out. Fast forward to family dinner, and the Marquis drops an absolute nuke on the table. The king is pushing a hardcore marriage pact between Evan and the crazy pink-haired princess. Evan instantly slams the brakes on that idea, shouting a hard pass, while the rest of the table loses their minds over the royal bombshell. His dad quickly waves his hands, swearing he already rejected the royal decree, but drops a heavy warning that the king is ruthlessly stubborn. Evan is massively confused, trying to figure out why the monarch is so insanely obsessed, especially when the kingdom is literally overflowing with elite noble heirs. The Marquis spills the real tea. It's not about political clout. The king is fiercely targeting the specific genius kid who built the Brotherhood pharmacy empire from scratch and single-handedly wiped out a massive plague. Knowing he's basically a high-value target just makes Evan want to dodge the altar even more. Terrified this hyper-focus will blow his cover and expose him as a totally irrelevant background mob, he desperately begs his dad to lie to the king and frame him as absolute trash who doesn't deserve the royal bloodline. But his dad pushes him to just own his real feelings. Evan freezes up, flashing back to that bizarre, chaotic moment with Serena and Ruby. In his memory, she's tightly gripping the fiery slime, bossing him around to drop the formal act when they're solo. The absolute kicker, she straight up confessed she vibes with him almost as much as her precious bugs. Breaking the silence, Evan admits the rumors were right. She's gorgeous now and is going to be an absolute stunner when she levels up. But he makes sure to add one brutal detail she'll never top below. Evan straight up admits her vibe is entirely unreadable. Dealing with her is pure exhaustion, and he would honestly rather just ghost the whole situation. When his dad double-checks if he is actually dodging the engagement, Evan does not hesitate. He explicitly states he never wants to cross paths with her again. The Marquis physically exhales relieved. He was low-key stressing that Evan might actually catch feelings, especially with the king constantly pushing them as the ultimate power couple. In Evan's mind, His Majesty was basically holding him hostage, forcing him into mandatory bonding time with the royal daughter. His dad shifts gears, mentioning a massive 4-day summit kicking off tomorrow regarding Brothers Pharmacy. He drops the bomb that the king specifically requested Evan's presence. but he quickly offers an out, saying the kid can totally skip it and let the adults handle the boring stuff. That way Evan can just roam the capital and chill. But cue the chaos. Serena suddenly crashes the scene, screaming his name and begging him to hang out. Our boy literally turns to stone. He slowly pivots toward her, then shoots a deadpan glare at his dad, who sheepishly shrugs, admitting his foolproof evasion tactic completely flopped. Cut to the bustling streets. Evan questions why a literal royal VIP is wandering around outside. Serena brushes it off, totally unbothered. She flexes the fact that she has 2 ridiculously overpowered bodyguards trailing her. Evan tries to shut it down, claiming his schedule is absolutely packed today, leaving 0 room for playdates. But she flips the script in a heartbeat, declaring she will just tag along on his errands. Our main guy frantically swears there are absolutely 0 worms involved in his plans. He pauses, catching himself, and cryptically tells the royal to just use her imagination, spinning around to face Shine and Belos. He barks at them to gear up. Evan pitches a quick shopping spree, pointing out they need to ditch the stuffy uniforms and move incognito for the next 3 days. Shine raises an eyebrow, asking if he makes the cut. Evan hits him with a solid yes, prompting a quiet nod from Beloa. She promises they will get ready and bounce right back. Evan clarifies that these 2 are not just staff, they are his ride-or-die besties, trapped in servant roles by pure bad luck. He demands the princess treat them with absolute respect, and she enthusiastically nods. Cornered, Evan finally asks the million-dollar question. Why is she even stalking him? Serena innocently chirps that she literally just asked the king for a playdate with brother Evan and he greenlit the whole thing. Heart pounding, our boy interrogates her about yesterday's drama. She nods casually, dropping how she detailed their garden meetup and her little encounter with Ruby. Full-blown panic sets in when she blindly admits she told her dad she likes Evan just as much as she loves worms. And the king totally bought it. Alarm bells ring in Evan's head. This is a one-way ticket to a forced engagement. Gritting his teeth, he mutters that he just wanted her to live a free, unchained life, not tied down by political leashes. She pouts, swearing she only asked her dad for some innocent hangout time. Pinching the bridge of his nose with a massive sigh, our hero caves. He agrees to hang out, but forces her to swear absolute secrecy. Serena lights up like a Christmas tree and eagerly accepts the deal. Flash forward. The squad rolls up to the ultra-luxurious King Island Cigargi boutique. The owner fawns over Princess Serena before doing a double take when she spots the infamous Evan D. Sheridan. She verifies his VIP status, but he instantly waves off the boring formalities. Instead, he demands top-tier drip for Shine and Belois, strictly woven from premium fabrics. Inspecting the racks, he checks if the threads actually stretch. The shopkeeper flexes their enchanted inventory, explaining the magic fabric physically morphs to fit growing bodies. Serena tilts her head, genuinely puzzled, and asks why people do not just buy new fits when they level up in size. Our boy drops some sentimental wisdom. Keeping the same gear means locking in core memories attached to those very threads. Her eyes widen, asking if clothes really hold memories like that. When he nods, a sneaky, shy idea pops into her head. Evan raises a suspicious brow. She pitches a trade. She will cop him a fresh outfit if he buys her one right back. Boom. Instant matching memory markers for both of them. He shrugs and agrees to the hustle. Cut to the fitting rooms. Shine pushes past the velvet curtains, looking absolutely sharp in his new gear. Evan steps out right behind him, completely iced out in a pristine white suit dripping with gold accents. Moments later, the princess emerges, rocking an overly ruffled pink dress, hitting a cute twirl, and fishing for compliments. He gives a flat but honest compliment, calling it pretty. Then his voice drops. He asks if she is seriously rocking that massive thing outside today. She blinks, saying yes, and wonders what the big deal is. He quickly shuts down his concern, pretending it is absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, Belois hits a deep, grateful bow, thanking him for the gorgeous new aesthetic. Serena totally fangirls over Belois, wildly claiming the maid is even more stunning than a majestic worm. The boutique owner bows out, thanking Evan for dropping bags at her store, and gushes about how much fun she had styling the crew. Our boy returns the polite nod, but then his eyes darken. He requests one final, highly specific purchase, the twisted crimson garment hanging in the back. He demands it be wrapped with intense security. The owner laughs it off, saying it is literally just another stretchy dress, but his eyes are dead serious. He orders it sealed up tight, completely blocking it from prying eyes. The dark truth. That piece of cloth is straight up cursed, and literally summons a world-ending kraken. Our protagonist smirks internally. Snagging this demonic dress was his absolute main quest for the day. It is a hidden treasure from the original game, and snatching it now shatters a massive future death flag. With the world saved, Evan casually sifts through the shiny jewelry displays, noting that the capital's bling completely outclasses their hometown trash. Shine snickers, instantly calling him out for acting like a diva. Our boy claps back with a razor-sharp whisper meant just for him. Changing the subject, Shine asks how he is dropping this much cash, guessing the pharmacy hustle is printing money. Belois chimes in, reminding them that the Marquis also funds his fat allowance. The protagonist flexes that his bankroll is fine, and hints at hitting up a few more spots. but declares they need to fuel up first. The squad shifts locations, eventually rolling up to a massive, imposing piece of architecture. Shine aggressively squints at the facade, questioning if this massive fortress is actually just a fancy cafe. The young master casually drops that it is a completely renovated estate. Shine nods, admitting the aesthetic goes hard, though he still looks visibly skeptical. Since they have a literal princess rolling with them, this spot better be the absolute peak of capital city dining. But our guy just smirks, claiming his real target is hiding right behind those doors. The second they step foot inside, the owner practically rolls out the red carpet for Serena. Meanwhile, the regular patrons start whispering, completely convinced this squad must be some elite foreign royalty. A few sharp-eyed locals actually recognize Evan as the crown jewel of Sheridan. Fawning over them, the owner instantly offers up the best seats in the house. But Evan shuts that down, pointing straight to a sketchy room tucked into the right corner of the second floor. The manager instantly sweats, stuttering about how regulars absolutely despise that space, claiming it is completely abandoned. Our boy is not taking no for an answer smoothly, flicking a solid gold coin right into the dude's palm. Boom, the manager scrambles to get the VIP treatment prepped. We are talking top-tier silverware and pure luxury plates. Once the feast drops, Evan treats it like a ritual, tackling the soup first, then sliding over to the salad and fresh bread. He meticulously polishes off the fish, completely ignoring the heavy meat until the very end, finally slicing into that juicy steak. Ordering the squad to follow his exact lead, he tells them to grab some cake and sip their Earl Grey tea. But he catches Shine looking totally spooked, and casually asks if the menu is not hitting right. Shine frantically shakes his head, swearing the weird eating order is fine, but there is this insane freezing vibe creeping through the room. Reality clocks him right in the face as he realizes they might not be alone. Belois just shrugs it off, telling him to chill out. She calmly drops the fact that whatever is lurking in the shadows will not actually pop out until they clear their plates. Like clockwork, the second the dishes are empty, the phantom of a little girl materializes in thin air. The trio just watches in dead silence as her glowing form slowly melts away. Evan mutters about the event being a massive success, barely stopping himself from dropping full-on gamer slang. Serena just hits him with the most confused side-eye. Pivoting back to the crew, he gestures to where the ghost just vanished, casually explaining they just helped a lost soul cross over. In his head, he knows this exact meal triggers a crazy hidden quest. Crushing all the ghost's favorite foods unlocks an insanely rare permanent buff. We are talking a massive spike in baseline stats and skill progression for the entire squad. Serena asks if the Phantom dropped any loot, but Evan brushes it off as just a totally harmless blessing. Beloy is already flexing her fresh energy boost, but Shine looks like he just saw a demon. He stammers out a question about the ghost, and our main guy confirms she is officially gone for good. Only then does Shine weakly ask for permission to pass out before straight up face-planting into the floor. Cut to a bit later, safe inside their room, where Beloy locks down the door. She hits him with the all clear, confirming she set up a perimeter so nobody can spy on them. Evan gives her major props before pivoting toward the desk. And honestly, the space looks like a pirate horde, shining gems, raw crystals, and flex-worthy jewelry scattered everywhere with the girls flanking him. Our boy rubs his hands together, asking if they are ready to tally up today's massive loot drop. Tearing through the pile, he counts up a solid 32 pieces of pure treasure. He is honestly hyped, totally shocked he managed to sniff out ancient relics from the First Demon War. Serena just scans the glittering pile, completely mesmerized. Belois is stressing about just leaving top-tier gear lying around, but our protagonist shuts down the panic. He breaks it down, explaining that true artifacts have self-sustaining durability. The princess is entirely baffled, wondering how literal magical weapons ended up sitting in a random jewelry store. Evan just casually snatches up a violently glowing ring. He drops some hard truth normies, literally cannot see the magic. Not every legendary item looks like something out of a myth. Some of this gear only turns into true artifacts after centuries, their latent magic slowly waking up, while others just carry massive, untapped potential. But they will stay entirely useless if you do not handle them right. Plus, he mentions how some relics absolutely refuse to activate until they lock onto a worthy master, or until you pump them full of pure mana. That sparks a memory for Serena, who remembers the royal palace actually keeps a dedicated mage just to babysit their cursed stash. Evan laughs, pointing out that an average citizen could stare at a god-tier weapon for 10 hours and just see a rusty spoon. And pulling that kind of intense staring contest in a high-end boutique would just get you thrown out on the street. Belois suddenly does the math, realizing the shop owner just took a catastrophic financial hit. Evan grins and totally agrees. The dude got scammed in broad daylight simply because his eyes were not sharp enough to spot the real prize. Serena tries to pry more info out of him, but he shuts her down, calling it a strict trade secret. Not backing off, she straight up asks if she can bag one of the relics for herself. Evan roasts her a bit, teasing that royals really should not just beg for free handouts. But she claps back, offering to smuggle something out of the royal vault as a trade. Evan instantly bites, knowing exactly how insanely valuable royal loot is. He locks it in, declaring it a solid business deal. But she gets all flustered, insisting it is a cute gift exchange, not some corporate contract. He tells her to grab whatever catches her eye, but she makes him do the choosing. Without missing a beat, he snags a wicked-looking necklace. He introduces the piece as the Tigress Glory. It is basically an absolute cheat code for beast tamers, permanently spiking their capture success rate. On top of that, pumping it with mana deploys a literal force field. The princess instantly lights up, hyping it up as the perfect gear for her build. But the absolute second it touches her skin, the gemstone detonates with blinding light. Our boy instantly narrows his eyes at the crazy reaction. His brain goes into overdrive, wondering if the core stats of the item just glitched and mutated from his original knowledge. Serena flexes, feeling an insane download of monster-taming knowledge rush into her brain, totally obsessed with her new drop. Evan just nods, acknowledging the massive win. Time to pay the piper. She leans in, ready to hear his demands. He locks eyes with her, stating that if a very specific artifact is chilling in the palace vaults, she absolutely has to snatch it for him. Flashing a confident smirk, she swears she will pull off the heist. She even drops a wild joke about casually swiping her dad's legendary ceremonial sword. Evan aggressively shuts that chaotic idea down on the spot. Later, as she is gearing up to bounce, Serena double-checks the mission. She verifies her only job is to secure that one specific target. Watching her leave, Evan smirks his mind, completely focused on the absolute god-tier relic waiting for him. Since it's basically junk to everyone else, the king shouldn't sweat, handing it over if she just asks. Pivoting to Balua, he offers to snag something for her too, but she quickly waves him off, claiming she isn't looking for handouts. She throws his own words back at him about striking a bargain with the royal, but he shoots that down. This isn't some shady trade. It's straight up a gift just for her. Locking eyes with her, he casually whips out a pair of dazzling studs, introducing them as the volcanic spirit earrings. He drops the crazy stats, insane mana regen, and a massive buff to any fire-based magic. Wide-eyed, she stammers, asking if they're the legendary drop she's thinking of, and he gives a cool nod. He casually drops that they're the ultimate combo piece to the Snow Mountain Spirit set. Instantly backing away, she insists she can't take something so overpowered, panicking over how a servant could rock the same god-tier loot as her boss. When he raises an eyebrow at her refusal, she straight up admits she doesn't deserve it. But our guy isn't taking no for an answer. Grabbing her hand, he firmly presses the blazing red gems into her palm, telling her to stop bottling everything up and actually vent once in a while. Flushing, she warns him that unleashing her full emotional baggage on him might seriously backfire. Our main character smoothly tells her to just voice her struggles, flexing that he's the guy who fixes things. Defeated by his charm, she gives in and slides the earrings on. Blushing with gratitude, she shyly asks him to call her Lua from now on. Cut to day 2, and Evan kicks off a massive loot run, hunting down any gear that guarantees his survival, ditching the snobby noble districts to dive straight into the sketchy hidden black markets scattered around the capital. Glancing at Shine, he smirks, warning him that the grind is about to get real, and casually drops a prayer that the royal pain in the neck packs her bag soon. But mid-sentence, our boy freezes, narrowing his eyes at his buddy's totally blank zombie-like face. Catching the weird vibe, Evan immediately demands to know what's eating him, pointing out the dude literally blacked out the day before, even though he seemed totally fine once they hit the mansion. Our MC cracks a joke roasting him for looking like a guy who just got dumped via text. Barely whispering, Shine groans that his whole body feels like lead. Evan tilts his head, wondering if the magic buff totally missed him since he personally felt like $1,000,000 right after. Shivering, Shine admits the blessing definitely hit, but this icy chill just won't fade. He flexes his arms, complaining that they feel like they're strapped with concrete blocks. A light bulb suddenly flashes in the young master's head. Without skipping a beat, he tosses over a slick pair of silver wristbands and tells his bro to just slap them on for the time being. Catching the accessories, Shine looks skeptical, asking if this is just some basic jewelry. Evan quickly drops the lore. They're the phantom bands, totally stacked with a 15% boost to both movement and strike speed. He shrugs, admitting he wanted to hook him up with broken loot, but these babies will easily carry him all the way to the 60th floor of the raid. Jaw-dropping, Shine stammers, the 60th floor. Our boy just smirks, reminding him that the absolute tryhards in the current server have only hit floor 45. But Evan quickly steps in with a reality check. Don't get too comfy with them because down the line he's going to need heavy-duty artifacts maxing out both tank stats and DPS. Checking in, Evan asks how the stats feel, and his sidekick dashes forward a few paces, totally amazed that his agility spiked. But that concrete feeling is still there. Suddenly the temperature drops, as a pitch-black shadow materializes right over his shoulder. Evan's blood runs cold, staring in pure shock, as he freaks out, demanding to know what kind of cursed magic his buddy just triggered. But totally clueless, his bro shrugs it off like it's nothing. Then the phantom maid slowly floats into view, and both guys absolutely lose their minds, screaming their lungs out because they were dead. Sure, she crossed over. Floating there, she just yawns, casually mentioning she thought the exact same thing, claiming she just took a nap and randomly woke up tethered to this dude. Connecting the dots, Shine totally loses it, screaming at the spirit to back off since she's the literal deadweight dragging him down. Hovering playfully, she admits she already tried dipping, but the exit is bugged. Leaning in with a creepy smirk, she totally trolls him, asking if he's officially possessed, sending the poor guy into a full-blown panic attack. Cutting through the chaos, our MC points out that the Phantom mentioned something looking super cozy a minute ago. Flashing a wicked grin, the spirit points a translucent finger straight at the new silver bands, purring about how they give off major luxury hotel vibes. She asks for permission to move in, promising it'll instantly clear up his icy debuffs. Not even hesitating for a split second, the terrified teen screams at her to just get in the accessory right now. And chirping a happy thank you, she completely ghosts Evan's frantic warnings and dive bombs straight into the glowing metal. The main character's mind starts racing. This is totally unscripted, a wild card event that 0 players ever triggered back in Demon War 4. Popping her head out of the silver band, she squeals about the 5-star comfort. Hearing that the puzzle pieces click for our gamer boy, the Phantom Band was literally coded to house a spirit from day one. He realizes the player base just completely missed this interaction, meaning these absolute legends just unlocked a secret game-breaking feature. He starts theorizing if absorbing her just upgraded the gear into a super rare leveling artifact. Staring at his wrist, his sidekick argues that the metal literally looks exactly the same as when he equipped it, but Evan slaps his back, telling him to stop complaining and take the massive win. The poor guy wildly disagrees, gesturing to the literal poltergeist chilling on his arm, though she just hums a happy tune about her new apartment. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoes through the room, snapping their focus. The door swings open to reveal Balua and Serena fully geared up and ready to hit the streets. Keeping his cards close to his chest, the boss totally refuses to drop the map coordinates for today's raid, giving his cursed buddy a signal to stay quiet for a sec. Stepping into the spotlight, Serena shoves a sleek box into his hands, acting coy as she delivers her promised pre-quest loot. Popping the lid, he's greeted by the gleam of a short blade and his jaw practically hits the floor. It's the legendary Limit Breaker. Flashbacks hit him hard. This is endgame gear straight out of Demon War 3 that normally forces players to grind infinite reputation points with the royal faction. Peeking over his shoulder, Serena innocently asks what the big deal is, and he drops the mic. It's a blade that literally shatters stat caps. He totally dodges, giving her the full wiki breakdown. But internally, his brain is exploding with this cheat code. He can bypass the strict system limits and stack infinite artifacts, which is the ultimate lifesaver for a guy carrying this many death flags, who could still easily get one-shotted despite rocking max armor. Securing a 6th artifact slot is an absolute must. Raising his blade, our boy whispers one word: limitless. A massive shockwave of energy explodes as a glowing golden lock materializes over an empty inventory slot. Ghostly chains violently shatter, ripping the seal wide open, completely annihilating the barrier. Shine totally drops his jaw, asking what in the world just went down, while Serena intensely watches, piecing together how the item actually functions. Our guy shrugs it off as complicated gamer logic, but flexes that his maximum equip capacity just leveled up, catching on fast. She immediately calls his next move hunting down more overpowered gear, which he straight up confirms. But hitting the streets again, Evan is practically dragging his feet. Serena hits him with a reality check, wondering why his shopping bag is so light after 4 straight hours of grinding through the market. Honestly, he is starting to think that pendant he gifted her has some secret infinite stamina buff. When she hypes up their next destination, our tired protagonist instantly calls for a food break, hyping up a local joint he supposedly knows like the back of his hand. Shine raises an eyebrow at the weird flex, but the young master tells his shadow to just roll with it. Pulling up to the spot, the squad is staring down a massive, intimidating establishment. Dane narrows his eyes, questioning how a sheltered noble even knows this territory. Playing it cool, our boy claims he just heard it was trending. But in his head, he knows Amy's Kicking is a legendary hub from Demon War 2, and it makes a massive comeback in Demon War 3. It is the ultimate grinding spot to recruit top-tier party members and trigger main story quests, famously pulling in absolute monsters like the Silent Knight. Catching onto the tavern vibes, Shine instantly stresses over the alcohol flowing inside, but Evan swats away the panic, reminding everyone they are rolling deep with a security detail. Plus, the sun is literally still out. Dane gives the green light, but while the crew relaxes, our protagonist is already locking onto his real target, the elite mercenaries crowding the room. The captain barks at his squad to keep their heads on a swivel, in a room packed with absolute savages. Pushing through the swinging doors, Evan commands a massive table and instantly drops an order for 7 plates of the house special. Scanning the dimly lit room, Shine immediately senses the heavy aura radiating from the patrons. Our guy just smirks, confirming they just walked into the ultimate den of the nation's heaviest hitters. Taking her seat, Bella nervously asks why they are chilling in such a high threat zone. Dropping a hint, Evan admits he is hunting for a priceless artifact, though mentally he is talking about a literal human being. Trying to calm her nerves about the shady crowd, he casually drops her secret nickname, throwing Shine into absolute shock. Serena immediately latches onto the cute name and begs to use it, but Lua shuts that down with zero hesitation, leaving the princess visibly pouting. While the boys silently judge the chaotic energy, a mountain of hot food slams onto the table, and Evan gestures for the entire crew, even the knights, to feast. The guards bow their heads in gratitude. Shine goes goblin mode on his plate, while Lua nibbles her food like a mouse. Meanwhile, our mastermind's eyes dart across the tavern, hunting for iconic character models from his past gaming days. Right in the middle of a bite, his radar pings, locking onto a lone dude slumped at the counter. With his glowing blonde hair and flowy robes, the guy looks like a classic healer straight out of a church. But looking closer, the heavy glint of steel armor peeks through the fabric. Evan's brain instantly fires up, identifying Ryan Drukus, the legendary Unbreakable Shield, an absolute wall from Demon War 4, famously known for his god-tier defense and infinite health regeneration. Sprawled out on the bar, Ryan catches Dane's sharp gaze too. The captain nods, recognizing a name that holds some serious street cred in the underground world. Spilling the lore, the captain reveals that this guy was once a child prodigy, blessed with insane holy magic, but stubbornly threw away the healer route to become a frontline paladin. The tragic part, he was totally missing the physical stats to brawl, leading to a massive downfall, forcing him to either quit his dream or waste 10 years grinding for a rematch. Crushed by reality, he drowned his stats in cheap liquor. Evan mentally bookmarks this tragic backstory. With Serena hyping him up, he struts straight over to the counter. Hearing the approaching footsteps, the washed-up knight glances over, locking eyes with our protagonist, who smoothly introduces himself and asks for the seat next to him. Sliding into the stool, Evan watches as the knight's eyes blow wide open after hearing a high-tier noble's name. Ryan instantly shoots out of his chair, totally baffled why a VIP is breathing his air. Not holding back, our guy roasts him, asking why a dude aiming for the commander title is wasting away in a tavern. Slamming his mug onto the wood, Ryan spirals into a flashback about his sacred oath. He swore to become a holy knight, dive headfirst into the bloodiest wars, and stack up divine karma. Spilling his guts, he reveals he was trained by a ruined noble from across the sea. Born with a massive mana pool, but exactly zero talent for casting, pushing everyone to force him into a boring priest role. But after nearly dying to shield someone, the heavens dropped a unique blessing on him totally hard, wiring his brain to chase the paladin dream. The brutal reality, even after insane grinding, every weapon felt clunky in his hands. He confesses he is not just trash with a sword, but a complete joke in actual combat, catching nothing but hate from his trainers. The whole academy screamed at him to quit, but he fiercely stood his ground, arguing that a literal gift from God was meant for tanking hits on the front line, not throwing weak band-aids from the rear. Sensing a massive opportunity, our boy leans in, asking for the exact name of this skill. Ryan mutters that it is the Guardian's Blessing, a legendary passive ability awarded only to players willing to become human meat shields. He breaks down the mechanics, detailing how it violently forces aggro onto him instead of his teammates, and while it is constantly running, popping the Holy Knight's divine shout, cranks the taunt to maximum overdrive. Evan's eyes practically light up instantly, recognizing this as the absolute god-tier skill for a main tank. Ryan bitterly nods, completely shattered by the fact that he was given ultimate defense, but zero attack damage, cursing himself for becoming such a massive failure. Our guy grills him about that rescue mission right after he unlocked his blessing, making it crystal clear that this power was literally built for defense, not throwing hands. Ryan confesses he totally used himself as monster bait, pulling aggro and sprinting for his life until the coast was clear. While Ryan calls his survival tactics pathetic, Evan is absolutely mind-blown. He straight up tells him that watching ripped warriors clash is basic, but stepping up to the plate when you literally cannot throw a punch, that is peak bravery. Still second-guessing himself, Ryan stays dead silent as our boy crowns him a literal hero for throwing himself in the line of fire, fully aware his blessing was zero help in a brawl. Ryan chokes up, admitting no one has ever gassed him up like that. Our main character crosses his fingers, waiting for the classic declaration about becoming an epic holy knight. When checking the vibe, Ryan admits a massive weight just lifted off his chest. Evan doubles down, hyping him up as top-tier holy knight material, swearing he sees the vision. But Ryan just shakes his head, dropping a massive plot twist by saying none of that title stuff even matters anymore, leaving Evan utterly shook. He spells it out clearly: he is officially done living for other people's approval, because Evan's pep talk just locked in his ultimate goal. From this second on, he is putting on blinders, swearing to act as a human shield for the innocent, regardless of the haters. Our boy smirks, realizing he just rolled a critical success. Matching that intense energy, Evan steps up and formally drops his full title: Evan D. Sheridan, the second born of Marquis Elaine D. Sheridan, the absolute boss of Dungeon City Sheridan. Ryan fires back with his own legacy, introducing himself as the living bloodline of the Drukus clan, the legends who literally tanked Dragonfire. He gives Evan a massive shout out for being a real one, and giving him the push needed to face his destiny. Looking at him, Evan realizes the universe totally knew what it was doing when it handed Ryan that specific power. Finally, our guy drops the T. He is not inheriting the Marquis throne, so the second he reaches adulthood, he is launching his own elite squad from scratch. Reaching his hand out, he formally pitches Ryan a day 1 spot on his future roster. He points out that Ryan does not just have the defensive stats, he has the hardcore drive to actually use them. He proposes they team up to keep their turf completely safe. Ryan stammers that he is way out of his league for something that prestigious, but he follows up by saying if Evan is fully aware of his flaws and still wants him, he is ready to grind 100%. They lock hands in a solid grip, and our protagonist officially welcomes him to the team. Cut to treasure chests, violently popping open, flooding the entire room with blinding gold, icy jewels, and mythical gear. The Marquis just stares, demanding a literal explanation. Evan casually brushes it off, claiming he scored insane luck on his trip back, and is treating this as startup capital for his new guild. He then shifts the spotlight to his new recruit, telling his dad he poached Ryan straight from the capital. Ryan immediately hits a textbook bow, declaring his vow to ride into the dungeons alongside his new boss. Then comes the massive favor begging the Marquis to liquidate this high-tier loot to buy his friend's freedom from the Order of the Great. The Marquis just cracks up, flexing that he already handled the buyout in cash. Just like that, their capital side quest is 100% cleared. Not only did Evan bag top-tier loot, he buffed his own gear slots and officially locked Ryan Drukas into the squad. Out in the courtyard, the princess is catching major feelings, whining about how her dad would grant her infinite outdoor passes if Evan just moved in. He ruthlessly shuts it down, stating he is locked in on Dungeon City and is practically ghosting the capital forever. She claps back, crying that he is making it sound like a permanent goodbye. He nods brutally, reminding her that his dad already vetoed the arranged marriage, but she stubbornly swears this is not the end. Evan tells her to chill with the dramatic promises, pointing out that VIP royals like her cannot just roam the map solo. He gives her a serious reality check about how toxic the outside world gets, telling her she needs to grind her stats to actually survive. Instead of getting scared, she takes that as a personal challenge, vowing to level up hard enough to track him down and crash his night roster. Our protagonist lets out an exhausted sigh, basically telling her to go wild if she actually manages to pull off that massive power-up. She promises she is going to lock in, and right before the carriage pulls away, she drops a sneaky request for him to start calling her by an exclusive nickname Ray. Hitting the dirt road away from the capital, Ryan suddenly observes how their boss acts like an absolute magnet for chaos. Shine completely backs this up, confirming that endless waves of trouble are basically guaranteed. Ryan connects the dots, realizing Evan's insane talent for decoding the universe's cheat codes comes with a seriously cursed price tag. Shine just sighs, emphasizing that keeping their leader breathing is the ultimate main quest over the city itself, because if he drops, the whole squad wipes. Ryan gets hyped, swearing to swing his blade at any threat, until Evan brutally interrupts to remind him his sword skills are pure garbage. Ryan blushes, admitting his adrenaline totally blinded him to his own trash stats. Our boy quickly pivots, explaining he only meant his combat output is 0, not that he is worthless. He hits him with cold, hard facts. His ultimate build is pure defense, and the creator did not just randomize those stats. Ryan looks confused, asking how he can play protector when he cannot deal damage, but the solution is crazy simple. He does not need a blade to carry the team, just gear that perfectly matches his meta. Ryan's eyes go wide as he pieces it together, a massive shield. Evan nods, revealing that back when Ryan face-tanked that monster, he unconsciously unlocked his signature playstyle. Our protagonist breaks it down. His job is to pull the enemy aggro, soaking up the heavy hits so the rest of the squad can survive untouched. Evan hits him with the real talk. What else could he possibly need? He calls Raihan out for ghosting his own backstory, and Raihan finally caves, admitting he was just cringing at his past self. Evan drops a massive truth bomb. A solo carry is not the only way. He hypes up Raihan, telling him his unique skill set is literally god tier for squad formations. The reality check hits hard. Raihan roasts his own past stubbornness as straight up pathetic, finally realizing that swinging a blade is not the only way to flex on the battlefield. Locking eyes with our main character, the whole vibe of Raihan shifts from shame to absolute pride. He swears on his life to master the shield, hyping himself up to become the ultimate protector for his crew. He is fully ready to squad up and dive into the chaos. Our boy Evan just grins, telling him to max out his defense stats and let the heavy hitters handle the damage. Evan starts cooking up the ultimate dream team in his head. He envisions this unbreakable alliance, Shine stepping up, Raihan locking it down as the Silent Knight, and Balaz bringing the heat as the Blood Witch. Together, they would be an absolute menace of a squad. But then Raihan drops. The million-dollar question is Evan actually going to throw hands on the front line too? Raihan just assumes the Knight Captain title automatically means frontline duty, but Shine instantly pushes back, questioning if their boss really needs to risk his neck like that. Balaz chimes in with pure loyalty, straight up telling the captain he does not need to lift a single finger in combat. Evan gives her a grateful nod but drops the bad news: the dungeon run is mandatory for him. Still, he promises to play pure support without getting his hands dirty. He flexes the fact that he has been grinding alchemy under the wing of Bernard. The jaw of Raihan practically hits the floor, completely shook that this legendary tier of training is even a thing anymore. Playing it cool, Evan brushes it off as pure luck, finding a top-tier master promising to stay chilling in the backline with the buffs, while Shine and Beloas instantly swear to be his ultimate meat shields. Cut to the squad rolling up in their carriages to Steama, a literal hot springs paradise. Shine low-key admits this is his first time seeing a hot spring, and Beloa quietly echoes the exact same vibe. Raihan chimes in, confessing he is totally clueless about them too. And even for our reincarnated protagonist, this is a brand new experience for this lifetime. The Marquis raises an eyebrow, doubting if our boy can handle the boiling temperatures, but Evan just smirks, claiming the hotter the water, the harder it buffs the body. There was zero chance he was skipping this epic side quest on their trip back from the capital. The Marquis drops some philosophical wisdom. The bathhouse does not care if you are a royal or a peasant, but it definitely still cares about gender rules. He points Beloa toward the section for ladies, causing her to instantly snap into defense mode and ruthlessly tell Shine to shut his mouth. Fast forward to the inn, our boy struts into the room to catch Shine and Raihan dealing with their luggage. He casually checks if they are done sorting their gear. Shine hits him with a confused look, completely baffled since Evan was supposed to be hitting the baths with the Marquis right now. But Evan hits reverse, saying he needed to chill and recharge first. The brain of Shine immediately starts cooking, guessing the captain ditched the bath to secretly raid a local dungeon. Evan shuts that theory down fast, hitting Shine with a brutal reality check about his low power level. Annoyed, Shine interrogates him on why he even brought the dungeon up, and Evan just hits him with a mysterious smirk, promising their time will come eventually. Raihan jumps in with the lore drop. There are literally only 3 mega dungeons on the entire planet, massive enough to have entire metropolitan cities spawned around them. We are talking Sheridan of the Silk Line Palati, of the Magic Kingdom Mana Road, and Murden over in the Commerce Nation Baypika. Sure, the world is absolutely crawling with mid-tier and low-level monster hubs, but only the god-tier city dungeons actually drop the blessing required to level up. Naturally, Shine gets curious and asks about the dungeon lurking right in this town. Evan does not sugarcoat it. That zone is completely hard-locked for regular players, because the difficulty scaling is straight-up lethal. Elite squads still have to grind it on the regular just to wipe the monster spawns before they raid the town. Plus, the loot table is insane. Random drops can literally spawn, or the dungeon walls themselves can mutate into overpowered artifacts. Shine gets stars in his eyes, wondering if they are about to secure a massive mansion drop. But our main character drops a totally unhinged flex. He is planning to drag an entire hot spring back home, and literally construct a brand new resort right in their own city. Smash cut to the actual baths, where Shine is nervously hovering at the edge of the boiling water next to Evan, hyperventilating as he stares at the bubbling steam, swearing on his life that stepping in there equals an instant game over. Our boy just sighs, pointing at the random people, and even their dad just chilling in the heat. But Shine starts making excuses, panicking that his weaker demigod stats cannot handle the temperature. Evan is officially out of patience. Snatching his towel, he coldly tells his buddy that if he is going to die, he might as well get it over with. With a ruthless kick, he launches Shine straight into the boiling depths, and the demigod hits the water with a massive splash, screaming and flailing like a glitching character. He complains about the insane heat for a moment before his entire body just suddenly melts into pure relaxation. Blushing, he finally admits the vibe is absolutely immaculate, and our protagonist drops a satisfied nod. While they are soaking up the good stuff, Shine genuinely questions if this is actually a healing buff. Evan goes full nerd, explaining that this water totally outclasses basic healing magic. Standard spells just wipe out temporary muscle fatigue, but this legendary spring actually repairs deep tissue damage and permanently buffs physical stats beyond their original limits. Raihan overhears and hypes up our boy for knowing the lore, pointing out that this exact exploit is why veteran knights used to camp in Steama for long-term grinding. Catching on, Shine leans in close, whispering his own theory about whether soaking here could secretly multiply their skill proficiency after a heavy workout. Evan flashes a knowing smirk looking over his shoulder to ask if Shine is finally hyped about dragging a hot spring home, and Shine nods like an absolute maniac. Fast forward, and the trio steps out flexing matching blue robes. The gamer brain of Evan instantly recognizes the outfit as a perfect match from his past life playthrough. He remembers the toxic forum drama, where players raged that the original designs felt way too Japanese, forcing the developers to patch them into a broader East Asian aesthetic. He zones out, realizing this fantasy dimension has zero connections to the history of Earth, making the actual origin of these outfits a total mystery. But then, Raihan casually drops a bombshell, noting that the threads look exactly like the traditional gear of his homeland, hinting that the original founders of this town probably migrated from his region. Evan is genuinely shook, completely mind-blown, that someone in this universe actually knows the lore behind the cosmetic skins. Right on cue, Lua pulls up, curious about his review of the baths, and he gives her the full rundown. Just as Beloa enters the scene and starts making her way over to our protagonist, this random white-haired kid literally crash lands into the moment. He forcefully shoves his way to the front instantly, flexing his massive ego and screaming to the heavens that he is the one and only Crovan Palati.